Hawthorne Academy stood like a fortress amidst the rolling hills of New England, its ivy-clad walls towering over the manicured lawns and stone pathways that crisscrossed the campus. The morning sun caught the crimson leaves of the old maples lining the central quadrangle, casting long shadows across the polished cobblestones. For over a century, the Academy had cultivated young men into disciplined scholars, athletes, and leaders, all under the watchful eyes of its staff and the iron-fisted rule of Principal Richard Stanton. The atmosphere was steeped in tradition, and anyone stepping foot on its grounds was expected to honor that legacy without question. It was a place where excellence came at the cost of personal freedom, and where the slightest deviation from protocol could invite harsh consequences. The students moved in synchronized precision, a silent testament to years of strict enforcement. Boys in crisp blazers and neatly pressed trousers strode through the halls, their shoes clicking against the wooden floors in a rhythm as steady as a heartbeat. Conversations were hushed, laughter measured, and gestures controlled. Romance, flirtation, or even casual displays of affection were strictly forbidden. Any student caught exchanging love letters or lingering too long near someone of the opposite gender risked not just punishment, but expulsion. This unwritten law had been drummed into generations, a silent, ever-present authority that shaped behavior as surely as the teachers shaped minds. Hawthorne was a school of structure, order, and above all, obedience. In the principal's office, Richard Stanton sat behind a massive oak desk that had belonged to his predecessors for decades. His posture was impeccable, his sharp eyes scanning a stack of disciplinary reports. The room smelled faintly of polished wood and leather-bound books, a combination as timeless as the institution itself. Richard's expression was unreadable, but there was an unmistakable weight behind his presence, a mixture of authority, pride, and the burden of carrying on a legacy he valued above all else. "Discipline is the foundation of character," he murmured to himself, as if repeating a mantra. "Without order, there is only chaos." Outside his office window, the young men of Hawthorne carried on, unaware of the countless rules dictating each step they took. The staff room offered a glimpse into the lives of those who maintained the Academy's strict regime. Teachers whispered about grades, lesson plans, and the occasional misbehavior, always careful to avoid straying into forbidden territory, romance, rebellion, or anything that could hint at softness. Miss Harper, the literature teacher, sighed as she arranged her papers. "I swear, sometimes it feels like Hawthorne is more about control than education. The boys are brilliant, yes, but there's no room for emotion. Love, friendship, it's all suppressed." Mr. Ellis nodded, adjusting his spectacles. "It's been this way for decades. Stanton believes sentiment is a weakness. He thinks he's preserving greatness, but at what cost?" Their voices were careful, measured. Even among colleagues, fear of reprisal lingered. Outside, the grounds were alive with activity, yet every movement was guided by routine. Students jogged along the track in perfect formation, some carrying books or musical instruments, others practicing fencing or rowing. The cadet-like precision was impressive, but it came at the expense of spontaneity. There was no running in the hallways, no lingering over conversations, no room for mischief or deviation. Even the younger students, fresh from the welcoming ceremony that morning, were quickly reminded that Hawthorne demanded compliance. A senior named Thomas Whitaker paused near the fountain to speak to a friend. "Remember," he whispered, "never let Stanton catch you looking at her too long. One glance, and it's trouble." His friend nodded grimly, understanding the unspoken rule that haunted every student. The Academy's anti-romance policy was more than a rule. It was an unspoken creed that shaped the very soul of Hawthorne. Students were allowed friendships, certainly, and camaraderie was encouraged, but anything deeper was considered a distraction, a threat to the intellectual and moral development of young men. Richard Stanton had made it clear from the day he became principal that love was dangerous, an unpredictable force that could destroy futures. He had seen it firsthand, or so he claimed, in the lives of students who had been expelled or punished for following their hearts. In his mind, he was protecting not only the boys, but the legacy of the institution he had devoted himself for 25 years.
The dining hall was another stage where discipline was enacted daily. Long oak tables stretched the length of the room, polished to a shine, each seat meticulously assigned. Boys ate in silence, utensils arranged precisely, and conversation limited to academic or school-related topics. Any laughter too loud, any shared glance too intimate, drew a watchful eye from the prefects, senior students entrusted with upholding Richard's rules. At a table near the center, a group of freshmen nervously passed their plates of eggs and toast. "Do you think we'll survive the first week?" one whispered, careful to keep his voice low. Another replied, "Just follow the rules. Don't get caught daydreaming. Don't smile at anyone too long. Just obey." The advice, half joking, half serious, summed up the reality of life at Hawthorne. In the chapel, the school's moral foundation was reinforced daily through assemblies and required sermons on discipline, honor, and the dangers of distraction. Richard Stanton often addressed the students personally, his voice echoing through the vast room, commanding attention. "Gentlemen," he would say, "the path to greatness is narrow. There is no room for frivolity, no room for distraction. Love, passion, and temptation are not your allies here. They are your enemies." The boys listened in rigid attention, absorbing the lessons like parched soil drinking rain. Few dared to question him, and those who did found themselves swiftly reminded of the consequences. Even the architecture of Hawthorne seemed designed to enforce order. Towering staircases with polished banisters, arched windows overlooking the quadrangle, and long corridors lined with portraits of past principals and notable alumni reminded students constantly of the institution's storied history. The walls whispered discipline. The floors echoed with footsteps that demanded obedience. Every element, from the meticulously trimmed hedges to the cadence of morning bells, served as a reminder that life at Hawthorne was one of control, tradition, and vigilance. It was a school that molded intellect, character, and ambition, but it also demanded that hearts remain contained, emotions restrained. Yet beneath the polished exterior, small flickers of rebellion occasionally sparked. A boy might linger a moment too long in the library, a smile exchanged between friends, a hand brushed in passing. All minor infractions that could, if discovered, invite censure. It was a delicate balance, this tightrope between compliance and individuality. Some students thrived under the structure, finding comfort in the certainty it provided. Others chafed against it, sensing the life they were denied, the connections they could not make, the friendships they could not explore fully. And though such murmurs were quiet, they were never absent, echoing faintly through the halls of Hawthorne Academy. As the day drew to a close, the setting sun bathed the quad in warm gold, casting long shadows across the perfectly raked gardens. Hawthorne stood proud, a monument to discipline and legacy, its halls echoing with footsteps and whispers alike. From the principal's office to the farthest corner of the dormitories, every brick, every stone, every beam was imbued with tradition, expectation, and the weight of history. And for the boys who lived within its walls, each day was a reminder. At Hawthorne Academy, excellence demanded obedience, and obedience demanded sacrifice, most of all, the sacrifice of the heart.
The reputation of Richard Stanton as an unyielding disciplinarian was well earned, and he wore it like a badge of honor. From the moment students and faculty set foot on Hawthorne's grounds, his presence was felt in every rule, every admonishment, every measured glance. He walked the halls with deliberate precision, his polished shoes echoing against the hardwood floors. No one dared to approach him casually. His demeanor was formal, his posture rigid, and his voice carried the weight of authority. Even the youngest students sensed that misstep and misconduct were never far from detection. To Richard, discipline was not merely a guideline, it was the lifeblood of the institution. In the staff room, Richard often conducted informal inspections, observing teachers as they prepared lessons or spoke quietly amongst themselves. Today he found Mr. Ellis grading essays and Miss Harper rearranging her books. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice cutting through the soft rustle of papers, "remember that you are responsible not only for your instruction, but for the conduct of your students. One lapse in judgment can undermine the standards we have maintained for generations. Mr. Alice bowed his head slightly, acknowledging the rebuke. "Yes, Principal Stanton, we are aware." Miss Harper offered a small, tight smile, her eyes reflecting the same mixture of respect and trepidation every teacher carried. Richard's gaze lingered for a moment, silent yet commanding, before he turned and continued down the corridor. Richard's approach to leadership extended to the students in unmistakable ways. He favored a structured environment where rules were absolute and consequences immediate. Boys walking past him in the hallways instinctively straightened their posture, adjusted their collars, and quickened their steps to avoid even the slightest appearance of negligence. One freshman, Timothy Barker, dared to exchange a smile with a friend while passing by Richard's office. The principal's sharp eyes caught it instantly. "Mr. Barker," Richard called, his voice echoing like a warning bell. The boy froze. "Yes, Principal Stanton?" "Smile reserved for the infirm or immediate family only. Conduct yourself with decorum," Richard said, his tone icy. Timothy lowered his eyes and muttered, "Yes, sir," understanding that even the smallest indiscretion could carry weighty consequences. The anti-romance policy was a cornerstone of Richard's philosophy, and he enforced it without hesitation. Love in any form was treated as a dangerous distraction, capable of undermining discipline and weakening the resolve of young men. He believed that emotions, particularly those related to affection or intimacy, were liabilities in an environment that demanded focus and rigor. "Attachment leads to distraction," he would say in assemblies, his deep voice resonating against the chapel walls. "Hawthorne Academy is a sanctuary of intellect and discipline, not a playground for sentimentality." Students listened, eyes downcast, absorbing every word with the quiet fear of those who knew the consequences of defiance. One morning, Richard summoned a group of senior students to the office. They stood nervously before him, their hands clasped tightly in front. "It has come to my attention that there has been correspondence between students of Hawthorne and girls from the neighboring academy. Let me be clear, such interactions are forbidden. Friendships may be tolerated, intimacy will not. Any student found engaging in romantic exchanges will face immediate expulsion. Do I make myself understood?" The boys nodded, silent and tense, knowing that any hesitation could be interpreted as defiance. "Good," Richard said, straightening a stack of papers on his desk. "We are men of discipline here. Remember that your actions reflect not just on yourselves, but on the legacy of Hawthorne Academy." Richard's strictness extended to extracurricular activities as well. He monitored sports practices, music rehearsals, and study sessions, ensuring that no student ever used these occasions as a pretext for inappropriate connections. During a fencing practice, he observed two boys lingering near one another, exchanging subtle smiles. Stepping onto the court, he raised a hand. "Mr. Whitaker, Mr. Collins, maintain focus. The blade is your only concern, not idle chatter or frivolous amusement. Discipline is earned through vigilance, not distraction." The boys lowered their heads, chagrined, and resumed practice with renewed intensity. Every movement was scrutinized, every glance was measured. Under Richard's watch, no room was left for spontaneity, much less romance.
The faculty, too, were under constant scrutiny. During a department meeting, Richard addressed a concern regarding personal relationships among teachers. "It has come to my attention that there have been minor indiscretions," he said, his tone sharp, though measured. "Let me remind you, our role is to model conduct, not personal indulgence. The reputation of this academy rests upon our collective discipline and moral integrity." Miss Harper exchanged a brief glance with a colleague, whispering, "He leaves no space for humanity." The colleague nodded subtly, understanding the unspoken truth. Any display of emotion, any softness, could be interpreted as weakness or corruption. Richard, however, perceived it as protection, protecting the school, the students, and the legacy he had built over decades. Despite his rigidity, Richard was not unobservant of talent or diligence. He praised students who excelled academically or athletically, but the praise was always paired with caution. "Well done, Mr. Foster," he said to a young mathematician after a perfect score on a difficult exam. "But remember, excellence requires constant vigilance. Pride in achievement can lead to complacency, and complacency is the enemy of discipline." The boy nodded, absorbing the compliment while sensing the underlying warning. At Hawthorne, every acknowledgement was layered with instruction, every reward tempered with caution. Richard believed that unchecked emotion, even pride, could threaten the structured harmony he so meticulously maintained. Interactions between students also reflected the shadow of his authority. In the library, two boys huddled over a textbook, their heads close together in discussion. The slightest whisper carried a risk. A senior student, acting as prefect, caught them and reminded them, "Keep your distance, eyes forward, words measured." When the boys hesitated, the prefect added quietly, "Principal Staunton expects nothing less." Even routine study sessions were thus tinged with vigilance, a constant reminder that personal expression had boundaries, and boundaries were enforced with an unyielding hand. Yet, beneath the iron exterior, Richard was not entirely immune to private reflection. Late at night, he would walk the quiet corridors of the dormitories, observing sleeping students, listening to the soft creak of floorboards, and contemplating the weight of his responsibility. He told himself that every rule, every restriction was for their ultimate benefit, a shield against the chaos of emotion and distraction. But the brief moments of solitude sometimes revealed the cracks in his armor, a faint questioning of whether the rigidity he demanded might one day cause harm. He would shake the thought from his mind, returning to the certainty that discipline was paramount, and sentiment, unchecked, was a liability Hawthorne could not afford. The principal's reputation reached far beyond the academy's walls. Parents of prospective students often described him with awe and fear in equal measure. "He will make men of boys," they would say, "but beware, he will brook no foolishness, no frivolity." And in truth, Richard took these expectations seriously, believing that the weight of history, tradition, and legacy rested upon his shoulders alone. His life was entwined with Hawthorne's identity. The Academy's success was his own, and any perceived failure was unacceptable. Love, desire, distraction, these were not merely personal concerns, but threats to the very structure he had sworn to uphold. As the sun dipped behind the distant hills, Hawthorne Academy settled into the evening rhythm of polished obedience. Boys returned to their dormitories. Meals were served with military precision, and the faint echo of Richard Staunton's footsteps lingered in the hallways long after he had retired to his office. Every corner of the campus reflected the philosophy he embodied: structure over spontaneity, duty over desire, and discipline over affection. In this world, hearts were subdued, laughter measured, and emotions contained. It was a legacy that had endured for generations, a legacy Richard Staunton would enforce, defend, and, if necessary, demand that every boy and teacher live by without compromise.
The crisp autumn air carried a chill as Ryan Mitchell's car wound its way up the tree-lined driveway of Hawthorne Academy. The ivy-clad walls of the historic building loomed ahead, their centuries-old presence a stark reminder of the traditions he was about to enter. Ryan, a tall man with tousled dark hair and a welcoming smile, stepped out of his car, carrying a worn leather satchel filled with sheet music and personal notes. He paused for a moment, taking in the grandeur of the academy, the stone archways, polished cobblestone paths, and the students moving in regimented precision across the quad. There was a solemnity here, a discipline that demanded respect, and Ryan felt the weight of it immediately. Yet, instead of intimidation, a spark of curiosity lit his eyes. He was here to teach more than music. He was here to awaken hearts. The campus seemed almost frozen in time, the students moving like clockwork under the watchful eyes of prefects and staff. Ryan's presence, however, stirred a quiet ripple of curiosity. Boys glanced up from their routines, some whispering, others daring a longer look, noting the casual confidence with which he moved. He greeted each passerby with a nod and a soft smile, and though most were cautious and reserved, a few returned the gesture, their expressions brightening. "Morning, gentlemen," Ryan said warmly to a small group of sophomores practicing drills on the quad. "Lovely day for music, isn't it?" The boy stiffened for a moment, unsure whether he was jesting or serious. One muttered, "Who is this guy?" Another replied, "No idea, but he seems different." That difference, as Ryan suspected, would both intrigue and challenge them. Inside the music department, Ryan was greeted by Ms. Harper, the literature teacher who had already observed the peculiar harmony of fear and respect that pervaded the academy. "You must be Mr. Mitchell," she said, extending her hand. "Welcome to Hawthorne. I hope you're prepared for a rather unique environment." Ryan shook her hand firmly, his smile reassuring. "Thank you, Miss Harper. I've heard quite a bit about this place," he said lightly, though his eyes reflected genuine intrigue. "Unique is good. I like places that challenge convention." Harper raised her eyebrow, her expression caught between amusement and concern. "You might find more than a challenge here. Stanton expects absolute adherence to rules. Anything resembling freedom of expression can be risky." Ryan chuckled softly. "I like a little risk. Makes the music sweeter." By noon, Ryan had been introduced to the students during an assembly in the Grand Hall. His presence, tall and approachable, stood out among the rigid atmosphere. He spoke directly to the students, his voice warm yet commanding attention naturally, rather than through authority alone. "Good afternoon, gentlemen," he began. "I'm Ryan Mitchell, your new music teacher. Music is more than notes and rhythm. It's expression, connection, and sometimes even courage. I hope to share not just technique, but something that resonates with the heart." A hush fell over the students. Many had never heard anyone speak with such warmth without immediately following it with a warning. Whispers spread. "He seems human," one boy muttered. "Not scary," another added. Yet beneath the surface, there was apprehension, the subtle knowledge that Principal Stanton would not approve.
Richard Stanton observed from his office, reviewing the assembly through the wide window that overlooked the hall. His gaze narrowed as Ryan spoke, noting the ease with which the students seemed to respond to him. "Humanity and expression," Richard muttered under his breath. "They are distractions, not lessons." A faculty member, standing nearby, ventured cautiously. "He seems engaging, sir. The students are reacting positively." Richard's jaw tightened. "Engagement is acceptable, but influence over their hearts is not. I will watch this carefully." Even as he spoke, he sensed a quiet threat in Ryan's manner, a charm that could undermine years of discipline and caution. Ryan's first class was scheduled in the afternoon, and the music room buzzed with quiet curiosity as students filed in. The room, filled with pianos, violins, and brass instruments, smelled faintly of wood polish and old sheet music. Ryan welcomed each student by name as they entered. a small gesture that immediately created rapport. "Good afternoon, Thomas." "Sarah." "Oh, I mean Mr. Foster," he said with a playful wink. The student stiffened, a mixture of surprise and confusion evident. "Yes, sir?" one boy asked, unsure whether to take the jest seriously. Ryan smiled. "I'm just noting that we're all individuals here, each with our own story. Music is about listening as much as playing, and that includes listening to one another." His words lingered, unusual in a school that prized conformity above all else. As the lesson progressed, Ryan encouraged improvisation, experimentation, and collaboration, concepts alien to the students' usual disciplined approach. He asked them to compose small pieces in pairs, to interpret a melody, not just technically, but emotionally. Imagine the story behind the notes. Does the melody speak of triumph, longing, or joy? How would you convey that with your instrument? Initially hesitant, the boys began tentatively experimenting, whispering suggestions and smiling at small successes. Ryan moved among them, offering encouragement and subtle guidance. "That's excellent, Mr. Collins. I can hear the excitement in your phrasing. Well done." The students glanced at one another, astonished by the genuine praise and freedom to explore. Later, during a break, a student named Daniel approached Ryan hesitantly. "Mr. Mitchell, do you always teach this way? I mean, it feels different." Ryan chuckled, leaning against the piano. "Different is good, Daniel. Music is about honesty, and I want you to feel it. If you're just following rules, you'll never hear the story in the song. Rules have their place, but they're not the heart of what we do here." Daniel nodded slowly, absorbing the sentiment, a spark of excitement lighting his eyes. It was the first time many of these students had felt that a teacher saw them as more than just bodies to be molded or young men to be disciplined. Word of Ryan's unconventional methods spread quickly. By evening, rumors circulated through the dormitories. "He actually smiled at me," one boy whispered to another, "and he said my composition sounded good." Another added, "He doesn't seem like he cares about the rules, but he makes me want to play." The juxtaposition was striking, the rigid traditions of Hawthorne clashing with the warmth and encouragement of a man who viewed students as individuals, not just subjects to be disciplined. For the first time in years, a sense of curiosity and excitement began to bubble quietly through the halls. However, not everyone was impressed. During dinner in the dining hall, Richard Stanton addressed his faculty, his tone low but firm. "I have observed the new teacher today. He engages the students, yes, but I do not trust the nature of this engagement. Encourage their curiosity, and they grow. Influence their hearts, and they weaken. Be vigilant. We cannot allow sentiment to undermine the order we have established." Miss Harper, seated beside him, dared a subtle nod. "He does inspire the students, sir, perhaps in a positive way." Richard's jaw hardened. "Positive for whom, Miss Harper? Not for Hawthorne. Discipline must always come first. This is a school, not a stage for emotion." The warning was clear. The arrival of Ryan Mitchell had already begun to unsettle the foundations of the academy. That night, Ryan walked alone across the dimly lit quad, the leaves crunching beneath his shoes. The grandeur of Hawthorne was undeniable, but so too was the rigid energy that seemed to permeate the very air. Yet he did not feel discouraged. "They need to know," he whispered to himself. "Not just music, but connection, courage, and love for what they do. It's time they feel what life outside rules can inspire." The moonlight caught the ivy-covered walls, casting long shadows, and for a moment, Ryan imagined the possibilities of what his presence could awaken. Change was coming to Hawthorne Academy, and he intended to be at the heart of it.
The crisp air of early fall carried the faint scent of fallen leaves as Richard Stanton made his routine rounds through the Hawthorne Academy quadrangle. From his office window, he had watched the students moving with their usual precision, yet something was different today. Whispers, laughter, and the unmistakable sound of music floated across the cobblestones. Richard's sharp eyes narrowed. It was the work of the new music teacher, Ryan Mitchell. The warmth and levity in the courtyard, which should have been a place of strict practice and controlled silence, seemed to grow under Ryan's influence. And that, Richard decided, was unacceptable. As he strode down the hallway, his footsteps measured and heavy, Richard could already hear faint voices raised in collaboration and encouragement. Peering into the music room, he saw Ryan kneeling beside a pair of students, guiding them through a duet with soft praise and animated gestures. Yes, that's it. Feel the emotion in the notes. Imagine the story behind each phrase, Ryan urged, his enthusiasm contagious. The boys' stiff postures softened, their eyes shining with newfound excitement as they experimented with their instruments. Richard's jaw tightened. Discipline is being replaced with indulgence, he thought, his mind racing with disapproval. If left unchecked, he will erode everything we've built here. He tapped sharply on the doorframe, and the music stopped immediately. Ryan looked up, his expression calm and welcoming. "Good afternoon, Principal Stanton. I hope I'm not disturbing anything?" Richard's eyes swept the room, noting every smile, every relaxed posture, every glimpse of enjoyment in the students' faces. "Mr. Mitchell," he said, his voice low but firm, "I am observing a serious lapse of decorum. Hawthorne Academy is not a place for frivolity. You are here to teach music, not to encourage distractions or emotional indulgence." Ryan tilted his head slightly, studying the principal with a mixture of curiosity and calm defiance. "I understand your concern, Principal Stanton, but what is music if not an expression of the human spirit? If the students cannot connect with it, they cannot truly learn. Discipline is important, of course, but if it comes at the expense of feeling, then we are only creating shadows of men, not men themselves." Richard's eyes narrowed further. "Feeling has no place here. Obedience, precision, and respect are the foundation of Hawthorne. Your approach undermines that foundation." A faint smirk tugged at Ryan's lips. "Or perhaps it enhances it. There is a difference between control and connection, sir. One builds fear, the other builds loyalty." The exchange drew the attention of the students, who stood frozen by their instruments, unsure whether to intervene or remain silent. Richard noticed their hesitation and interpreted it as a sign of weakness, not curiosity. "I will not tolerate this," he said, his voice rising slightly. "If you cannot adhere to the standards of this academy, I will have no choice but to relieve you of your duties. Consider this a formal warning." Ryan's expression remained composed, but a subtle glint in his eyes betrayed his resolve. "I respect your rules, Principal Stanton, but I cannot abandon my principles. I will continue to encourage the boys to engage with music and with each other in a way that fosters creativity and courage. Perhaps that is where we differ." Later that day, in the faculty lounge, Richard voiced his concerns to the department heads. "I've observed the new teacher today," he began, his tone sharp and deliberate. "He promotes camaraderie, open discussion, and even emotional expression among the students. This is not education, it is sedition. These boys are impressionable, and he is molding them with ideas that could destabilize the entire culture of this school." Miss Harper, seated nearby, stirred in her chair, a hint of unease in her eyes. "With all due respect, sir," she said carefully, "he is inspiring the students. They are more engaged than I've seen them in years. Isn't that a good thing?" Richard's fingers drummed against the table. "Good engagement is one thing. Influencing hearts is another. This is not merely teaching music. It is about teaching morality, discipline, and self-restraint. He threatens all of that."
Meanwhile, Ryan continued his classes with unwavering confidence, unaware, or perhaps unconcerned, of the growing tension. During a piano lesson with a senior named Thomas, he leaned in and said softly, Thomas, the point of this piece isn't just to hit the notes correctly. Imagine what the composer was feeling when he wrote it. Bring that emotion into your performance. Let it breathe. Thomas hesitated, then allowed himself to experiment. The melody that emerged was hesitant at first, then swelling with warmth and resonance. Ryan clapped lightly. Beautiful. That's the music I was hoping to hear. Do you feel it? Thomas nodded, a small, shy smile tugging at his lips. For the first time, the student realized that learning could be more than obedience. It could be joy. Richard, however, remained unmoved by such small victories. That evening, he summoned Ryan to his office once more. The tall, composed teacher entered, exuding calm confidence. "Mr. Mitchell, I am warning you again," Richard said, his voice firmer than before. "You are bending the boys to your philosophy, and I cannot allow it. I have considered your methods carefully, and I am inclined to terminate your contract if there is no immediate change." Ryan folded his arms lightly, a respectful defiance in his posture. "Principal Stanton, I understand your authority, but consider this. Discipline without heart produces obedience, yes, but not understanding, not passion, not life. I cannot teach in fear. I can only teach in trust." Richard leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "Trust is a dangerous concept. You risk everything: order, tradition, the integrity of Hawthorne Academy. If the students begin to think they may challenge authority, they will. If they begin to follow their hearts, they may falter." Ryan's voice remained steady. "Sir, is it not a greater risk to produce men who never learn to listen to themselves or care for others? I will not abandon my principles, and I will not abandon the students. I hope that you will find room for understanding, not just rules." The tension between them was palpable, each word a subtle battle of wills. The philosophical conflict began to ripple through the academy. Students whispered in dormitories, cautiously testing the limits of their newfound freedom under Ryan's guidance. "I think he actually wants us to enjoy learning," one boy said, eyes wide with disbelief. Another added, "But Principal Stanton, he'll catch us if we get carried away." The contrast between the two men's approaches could not have been starker, one demanding strict adherence to rules, the other encouraging exploration, emotion, and connection. The hallways buzzed with an invisible tension, each boy silently wondering who would ultimately prevail. By the end of the day, Richard walked through the quad alone, watching the students practice quietly under Ryan's supervision. He noted the smiles, the tentative laughter, the way the boys lingered just a little longer over their music. His jaw clenched. For the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar, a sense of unease. If he continues like this, Richard thought, I may be forced to act. I cannot allow Hawthorne to crumble beneath the weight of sentiment. Yet somewhere deep within, there was an acknowledgement he could not admit aloud. The students were alive in a way they had not been under his strict regime. That evening, in the dim glow of his office, Richard pored over disciplinary reports, his mind restless. Ryan's presence had unsettled the carefully constructed order of Hawthorne Academy, and yet it had also awakened a curiosity he could not easily dismiss. He scribbled notes in the margins, listing potential violations and areas of concern, but his hand trembled slightly, betraying a faint inner conflict. For the first time in 25 years, the certainty of his authority felt vulnerable, and the arrival of one teacher, a man with warmth, charm, and conviction, had created a crack in the fortress of his convictions.
The tension in Richard Stanton's office was palpable as Ryan Mitchell stood before him,
the late afternoon sunlight filtering through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. The clash of ideals from the previous days had brought them to a precarious stalemate, each man entrenched in his philosophy. Yet Ryan's eyes held something deeper now, a seriousness that went beyond music, teaching, or rebellion. "Principal Stanton," Ryan began, his voice steady but weighted with emotion. "There's something I need to tell you. Something about who I am and why I am here." Richard's brows knitted, curiosity mingled with suspicion. "Explain yourself, Mr. Mitchell," he said, his tone clipped, though a flicker of unease crossed his face. Ryan inhaled deeply, gathering the courage to reveal a truth he had kept buried for decades. "I'm not just Ryan Mitchell," he said slowly. "I am Ryan Callahan. I was a student here 20 years ago, and He hesitated, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I was in love with Madeline Stanton, your daughter." Richard's chair creaked as he leaned back, his hands gripping the polished arms tightly. His eyes widened in shock, a color draining from his face. "Callahan? Madeline? What are you saying?" His voice was tight, controlled, but it trembled ever so slightly with disbelief and an emotion he refused to name. Ryan's eyes were unwavering, though his heart pounded. "I loved her deeply," he continued. "We were happy, for a time. But you discovered our relationship. You forbade it. You threatened to expel me, and you did. I left Hawthorne, carrying the memory of her and the pain of losing her, and she could not bear the heartbreak. She ended her life, sir. I am here now to honor her memory and to ensure no other student suffers the way she did." The room was silent for a long moment, the weight of Ryan's confession settling like a stone. Richard stared at him, unblinking, as memories long suppressed flooded back, unbidden and raw. Richard's voice was low, almost strangled. "Madeline, you were her..." He broke off, his mind racing through flashes of his daughter's face, the strict rules he had imposed, the arguments, the tears, and the devastating finality of her absence. "You are Ryan Callahan," he said again, as if testing the truth, "and you were with her? You were the boy she loved?" Ryan nodded solemnly. "Yes, sir. I was expelled for it, and I never stopped mourning her loss. That is why I am here, to honor her memory and to challenge the coldness I've seen take root here. I cannot unteach what I have learned, nor will I abandon the students who seek more than rigid instruction. I will encourage them to feel and to connect and to grow, not just academically, but emotionally." Richard sank into his chair, his fingers running through his graying hair, struggling to maintain composure. Do you understand what you are saying? You are standing here, in my office after all these years, and you intend to undermine everything I have built. After what happened, you want to challenge me." Ryan stepped closer, not in defiance, but in conviction. "I do not seek to challenge you, sir. I seek to challenge the harm that rigid rules caused. The Academy is brilliant, yes, but it cannot thrive if it crushes the hearts of the very students it is meant to nurture. I have seen what happens when love and connection are forbidden. It destroys lives. Madeline's life was proof enough."
Richard's chest tightened, a mix of grief, guilt, and anger surging in waves. He had spent 25 years building Hawthorne into an institution of strict order, never considering that his uncompromising stance might have caused irreparable harm. I only wanted what was best for her, he said, voice breaking slightly. Discipline, structure, tradition. I thought I was protecting her. Ryan's expression softened, a quiet sorrow in his eyes. Protection is not control, sir. Discipline is not love. You confused fear for care, and in the process, you drove her to despair. I am here because no other teacher or student should endure that pain. Not under my watch, not under anyone's. The silence stretched between them, heavy and loaded with the ghosts of the past. Richard's hands trembled slightly as he gripped the arms of his chair, struggling to reconcile the man standing before him with the child he had once disciplined. You were expelled for loving her? He asked finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Yes, sir. I left Hawthorne heartbroken, carrying the memory of Madeline and the realization that love, something so pure, was deemed a threat here. I vowed, if I ever returned, it would be to restore balance, to teach the students that they can follow rules and still follow their hearts. Richard buried his face in his hands, the years of rigid authority and suppressed grief colliding in an overwhelming surge. You come back as a teacher, he said, voice hoarse. To influence them? To encourage what I have spent decades preventing? Ryan's voice was calm, unwavering. Not to influence, sir. To guide. To inspire. To remind them that rules exist to create structure, not to suffocate their humanity. I am here to honor Madeline by creating a space where emotion and discipline coexist, where students can thrive without fear of heartbreak or reprisal. Richard leaned back, staring at the ceiling as memories of his daughter's laughter, her gentle defiance, and her tragic loss played across his mind. I thought I was doing right, he whispered. I thought love would ruin her life, and instead, I lost her. I see now that His voice faltered, and Ryan stepped closer, though cautiously, giving him space to process. It is never too late to change, sir, to prevent others from suffering the same fate. You have the power to lead differently, to guide without crushing, to honor her memory by choosing compassion alongside discipline. Richard's hands fell into his lap, his mind racing with regret and realization. For the first time, the weight of his authority felt heavy, not empowering. I cannot undo what has happened. Madeline, she is gone. And you carry her memory here, challenging every principle I have ever held. Ryan nodded, his own hands clasped loosely at his sides. Yes, sir. I carry her memory, but I do not carry resentment. I carry a mission: to ensure the Academy does not destroy what it seeks to cultivate. You have built something extraordinary, Principal Stanton, but it must evolve, or it will continue to harm those it touches. The room was quiet for a long moment, the only sound the distant echo of students moving across the quad. Richard finally spoke, voice heavy with emotion and reflection. You were the boy she loved. And you survived it. And yet, you return, not in anger, but with purpose. Ryan's lips curled into a faint, compassionate smile. Yes, sir. I return because love should never have to be a crime. And because Hawthorne deserves to witness that truth. Hearts and minds can grow together, not in opposition. For the first time, Richard Stanton felt uncertainty settle over him, mingled with a haunting guilt that had long been buried under decades of rigid authority. Ryan Callahan, once a student, once a lover of his daughter, now a teacher, stood before him, not as an adversary,
but as a mirror reflecting the consequences of his choices. The past had been painful, tragic, and irreversible, yet it had also brought clarity. The academy, the students, and even Richard himself were at a crossroads, and the revelation of Ryan's true identity had forever altered the course of Hawthorne Academy.
The afternoon sun filtered through the tall windows of Richard Stanton's office, casting long, warm streaks across the polished wooden floor. Ryan Callahan, formerly Ryan Mitchell, stood quietly, a weight of grief and resolve in his posture. Richard remained seated, his hands clasped tightly on the desk, his eyes fixed on the man before him. The revelation of Ryan's identity had left the principal unsettled, but he did not yet fully grasp the depth of the pain that lingered beneath Ryan's calm exterior. Ryan took a slow, steadying breath and began to speak, his voice measured, yet carrying a profound sorrow. Madeline was extraordinary, Ryan said, his gaze distant, lost in memory. She had a mind that could unravel the most complex problems, a heart that could love deeply, and a spirit that refused to bend to anything but the truth. When we were together, she laughed freely, she dreamed, she sang, and for a brief time, she was happy. He paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. And then you stepped in, sir. Your rules, your warnings, your insistence that we could not be together, it shattered her. She believed that her love, something so natural and true, was forbidden. And in her heart, she thought she had no choice but to obey. Richard shifted uncomfortably in his chair, the sharp lines of control on his face softening ever so slightly as guilt began to stir. I did what I thought was right, he murmured. I thought I was protecting her from mistakes, from danger. Ryan's eyes, however, bore into his, filled with an intensity that made Richard flinch. Protected her from what, sir? From happiness? From love? From a chance to live fully? You cannot imagine the walls that built around her heart because of your fear, the suffocating sense of duty you imposed. She was trapped, and she knew it.
The office seemed to shrink around them as Ryan continued, his voice softening, yet carrying every ounce of pain he had endured for 20 years. She wrote to me, desperate, pleading for understanding, for some way to be together without your judgment shadowing her life. But you refused. You insisted that obedience and discipline were more important than love. And slowly, that despair consumed her. His hands trembled slightly as he clenched them, a rare vulnerability breaking through his composed demeanor. She could not bear the thought of losing me, yet she believed that staying with me would displease you and defy your rules. She believed there was no way forward, and in the end, she ended her life. Richard's face went pale, and he buried his face in his hands. For the first time in decades, the man who had always embodied control, authority, and discipline was confronted with raw, irreversible consequence. She killed herself? He whispered, the words catching in his throat. All those warnings, all those lectures, and it led to this? My daughter? Ryan nodded solemnly, his eyes never leaving Richard's. Yes, sir. Because the rules you imposed were absolute, inflexible, and unyielding. She saw no alternative. She believed that following your dictates was her only duty, and it left her no hope, no choice, no peace. The silence that followed was thick, heavy, and suffocating. Richard's mind reeled through years of control, rules, punishments, and expectations, the faces of students past and present, his own decisions, and the echo of Madeline's laughter haunted him. He lifted his head, voice barely audible. And you survived? Ryan nodded. I survived because I left the school, because I carried her memory with me, and because I promised myself that no one else under Hawthorne's walls would have to suffer as she did. That is why I'm here, sir. Not for revenge, not for defiance, but to ensure that love, friendship and compassion are not punished as crimes.
Richard's breathing was shallow, and he clenched the arms of his chair as though it could anchor him against the storm of emotion threatening to sweep him away. I thought the rules would protect her, he said, his voice breaking. I thought discipline would keep her safe. I never considered the cost to her heart, to her mind, to her life. Ryan's tone softened, yet remained firm, carrying the weight of truth. Protection without understanding is cruelty, sir. You may have meant well, but your inflexibility and fear of love led to the greatest tragedy any parent could endure. Hawthorne may be a school of excellence, but it cannot be a school of fear. Students cannot learn fully if they are afraid to feel, afraid to love, afraid to be human. Richard buried his face once more, struggling to reconcile the decades of rigid authority with the harsh reality laid bare before him. I never knew. I never imagined. His voice trailed off, choked by the guilt that had accumulated like sediment over years of control. Ryan took a careful step forward, lowering his voice, bridging the gap between past and present. And that is why I am here now, to teach them, to guide them, to show them that rules are not meant to crush hearts, that discipline and compassion can coexist. Madeline's life was cut short because there was no room for love within these walls. I will not let it happen again. Richard lifted his gaze, eyes red-rimmed and glassy, meeting Ryan's with a mixture of pain, anger, and reluctant understanding. You think you can change this? That you can undo what has been established for decades? Ryan's voice was calm, yet unwavering. I cannot undo the past, sir, but I can influence the present and the future. I can show these students that it is possible to follow rules and follow their hearts, that they can be both disciplined and compassionate, that they can love without fear. Hawthorne can be a place of growth, not just obedience. The room was silent again, the enormity of Ryan's words sinking into Richard's consciousness. He remembered the laughter, the warmth, the brilliance of his daughter, everything he had tried to control and constrain, and realized that his intentions, however noble, had caused irreparable harm. I never knew. I never imagined. His voice trailed off, choked by the guilt that had accumulated like sediment over years of control. Ryan took a careful step forward, lowering his voice, respecting the fragile boundary between authority and confession. And it is not too late, sir. You can choose to lead with compassion as well as discipline. You can honor Madeline by ensuring no other life is crushed under the weight of rules meant to protect. For the first time, Richard felt the weight of his authority as a burden rather than a privilege. He realized that the tragedy of his daughter was not merely a personal loss, but a consequence of a system he had created and enforced without question. I do not know if I can change, he admitted, voice quivering with uncertainty. But I understand now that I must try. I cannot allow this to happen again. Ryan's eyes softened with understanding. That is all any of us can do, sir, one step at a time. Guided by the lessons of the past, Madeline's story need not repeat itself, but it will, unless we act differently. Richard nodded slowly, the first flicker of humility and remorse breaking through his decades of pride. The room was heavy with grief and truth, yet within that weight lay a spark of possibility. The emotional confrontation, the recounting of Madeline's heartbreak, had laid bare the consequences of inflexibility, and for the first time, Richard Stanton faced the reality that Hawthorne Academy could no longer remain unchanged. The stage was set for a battle not merely of rules and authority, but of heart, philosophy, and the future of every student under his care.
The following morning at Hawthorne Academy, the crisp autumn air was alive with the muted rustle of leaves along the ivy-covered walls, a quiet reminder that change, however subtle, had begun. Ryan Callahan arrived at the music building earlier than usual, his satchel slung over his shoulder, sheet music tucked neatly inside. But today, his focus was not merely on teaching notes and harmonies. His mission was far more delicate and personal. He carried the memory of Madeline with him, a compass guiding him through the labyrinth of strict rules, rigid discipline, and the walls of fear that Principal Stanton had built around the students' hearts. He knew he could not undo the past, but he could plant seeds for the future. Ryan paused at the doorway of the first classroom he would visit that day, glancing at the students seated in neat rows, their uniforms impeccable, their posture precise. He smiled softly. "Good morning, gentlemen," he greeted, his voice warm, yet commanding attention without demanding it. The students stiffened slightly, instinctively observing the strict decorum they were taught to uphold. "Today," Ryan continued, "we're going to explore music differently, not just as notes on a page, but as stories, as emotions, as connections. Music isn't something you play alone. It's something you share." A quiet murmur ran through the room. The idea of sharing, of collaboration, was foreign in an academy so devoted to structure and hierarchy. He divided the class into pairs, giving each duo a simple melody to practice together. "Listen to one another," Ryan instructed, his eyes scanning the room with a gentle intensity. "Notice how your partner interprets the notes. Feel what they feel. Respond. Music is a conversation, just like life. You can learn from it, just as you can learn from each other." Hesitant at first, the students began to experiment, their fingers stumbling across the keys, their initial rigidity softening as they began to connect with their partners. Thomas, a reserved sophomore, glanced at his partner nervously. "Aren't we supposed to do it like this?" he whispered. Ryan knelt beside them, smiling encouragingly. "Exactly like that. But don't worry about being perfect. Worry about being real. Let the music tell your story." As the days passed, Ryan's influence began to ripple quietly through Hawthorne. He introduced small group sessions, encouraged casual conversations after class, and subtly allowed students to share their thoughts and feelings, not about grades, not about performance, but about themselves. During a lunch break, he noticed two boys, Samuel and Derek, sitting apart, tension radiating between them. Ryan approached slowly. "Mind if I join?" he asked, sliding into the bench beside them. The boys stiffened, unsure of what to expect. "I noticed you two haven't been getting along," Ryan said gently. "Music teaches us harmony, but life requires it too. How about we try a small exercise? Listen to each other's perspective, just like you would listen to a melody." The boys exchanged skeptical glances, but allowed him to continue. By the end of lunch, they were laughing quietly, tentative walls beginning to crumble.
Meanwhile, whispers of Ryan's methods began to circulate through the dormitories. Students who had never spoken to one another were finding common ground, drawn together by shared music, shared conversations, or simple gestures of kindness. Marcus, a senior who prided himself on his stoicism, confided in a friend for the first time, his voice low but earnest. "He actually listens, really listens, not just to your notes, but to you. I didn't think anyone at Hawthorne cared about that." His friend nodded slowly. "Yeah, it's weird, but it feels good, safe almost." The subtlety of Ryan's approach, never confrontational, always encouraging, was gradually creating a culture where students began to explore connection without fear of reprimand. During one afternoon music rehearsal, Ryan noticed Isabel, a visiting student from St. Margaret's Academy, observing shyly from the doorway. Her gaze lingered on Victor Morales, a boy known for his quiet demeanor, who was struggling with a violin piece. Ryan caught her eye and nodded. "Invite him to practice with you," he suggested softly. Isabel hesitated, biting her lip, unsure if it was appropriate. Ryan smiled reassuringly. Sometimes the right note is simply extending a hand. Minutes later, the two were working together, their laughter mingling with the music, and Ryan stepped back, silently acknowledging the small victory. Connections, even minor ones, were forming one note at a time. Not all students responded immediately to Ryan's methods. Some remained guarded, bound tightly by years of expectation and fear of reprisal. Yet even among the most reserved, curiosity began to bloom. During a private lesson, a student named Kyle Donovan asked cautiously, "Mr. Callahan, is it really okay to care about someone, even here?" Ryan's gaze softened, recognizing both the boy's hesitation and desire for guidance. "Absolutely, Kyle. Caring for others doesn't weaken you, it strengthens you. Love, friendship, respect, these aren't distractions. They're the melodies of life. If you can nurture them responsibly, you will flourish in ways rules alone cannot teach." Kyle nodded slowly, a tentative smile breaking through years of rigid self-restraint. Ryan also understood that his mission required subtlety. He could not directly challenge Principal Stanton, not yet. The principal's scrutiny was constant, and any overt act could invite disciplinary action, or worse, termination. So he taught with care, planting seeds rather than uprooting systems. During a lesson on classical composition, he said casually, "Sometimes the most beautiful music comes when two seemingly different pieces meet and harmonize. Think of your classmates as instruments. You can create something extraordinary together if you listen, respect, and collaborate." The students exchanged glances, some understanding the metaphor immediately, others slowly internalizing the lesson. As the week progressed, Ryan began to notice subtle changes in the academy. Laughter lingered longer in the hallways. Boys began to hold doors for one another, share notes, or offer encouragement during practice. Even the dorm prefects, who were once rigid enforcers of rules, began to relax slightly, curious about this new approach. "It's different," admitted Thomas quietly to his roommate one evening. "I feel like I can breathe here, like someone actually sees me." His roommate nodded, still cautious but intrigued. "Yeah, maybe this isn't so bad. Maybe we can have both, rules and something else." One evening, as Ryan packed his bag and prepared to leave the music building, he lingered for a moment, listening to the soft echo of practice notes from the students lingering in the room. The melody was imperfect, a mixture of mistakes and triumphs, but it was alive, just as he intended. He whispered to himself, "For Madeline, for every student who deserves to feel, to connect, to love without fear, this is only the beginning." Outside, the sun dipped behind the trees, casting long shadows over the courtyard. But within the walls of Hawthorne, a quiet transformation had begun. A new harmony was forming, subtle but unstoppable. And Ryan Callahan knew that every small connection, every shared note, every moment of trust was a tribute to Madeline and the life that she had been denied. By the end of the week, Ryan's influence was undeniable. Students who had never dared to speak in class were volunteering, sharing thoughts and feelings through music. Friendships formed, laughter returned, and the sense of fear that had dominated the academy for decades began to crack. Richard Stanton, observing from his office window, felt the stirrings of unease and admiration. He could see the joy, the engagement, the quiet rebellion of the heart forming within the students. And though he refused to admit it aloud, he knew the mission Ryan had embarked on was already beginning to take root, planting the seeds of change that would soon challenge everything he had ever known about control, discipline, and love.
The late October afternoon brought a golden hue to the grounds of Hawthorne Academy, the crisp leaves crunching underfoot as students hurried between classes. Sammy Cooper leaned against the stone wall of the main quad, guitar case slung over his shoulder, watching the other boys pass with a quiet attentiveness to their routines. To the outside eye, he was a typical senior, tall, athletic, with easy charm and a steady gaze that betrayed confidence. But beneath that composed exterior, Sammy's thoughts were often occupied by Sophie Adams, his childhood friend, who had become the center of his world long before romance had entered the picture. Sophie approached from the direction of the girls' school across the street, her auburn hair catching the sunlight, her green eyes bright with laughter. Sammy's heart lifted, as it always did when he saw her. They had grown up together, neighbors and constant companions, sharing secrets, dreams, and endless afternoons exploring the wooded edges of the academy grounds. Yet today, there was an unease in her expression, a flicker of distraction that gnawed at Sammy's stomach. Behind her, Derek Hughes strolled casually, arm draped over Sophie's shoulder. He was tall, handsome, and notoriously popular. Everything Sammy knew Sophie didn't actually value. "Hey, Sam," Sophie greeted softly, her smile strained as Derek nudged her playfully. Sammy forced a casual grin. "Hey, Soph, how's your day?" His voice held a settled tension, a mixture of familiarity and concern. Sophie glanced at Derek, who smirked arrogantly before leaning in to whisper something jokingly in her ear. Sammy's hands clenched around the strap of his guitar case. He had hoped that, despite Derek's attention, Sophie would still see the depth of his feelings. But her laughter, tinged with distraction, made him ache. "Sammy, this is Derek," Sophie said, though he already knew. Sammy nodded politely, though his tone carried a hint of edge. "Hello, Derek." Derek grinned broadly, ignoring the formalities. "Sammy, didn't know you'd be hanging around today. Sophie told me you're quite the musician." Sammy gave a short nod, keeping his composure. "Yeah, just practicing." He tried to keep the conversation civil, but the tension between them was unmistakable, an unspoken acknowledgement that Derek's carefree attitude and Sophie's loyalty to friendship were pulling at Sammy's patience.
Later that evening, Sammy found himself in the practice hall, guitar in hand, replaying the day's events in his mind. He strummed slowly, the notes soft and melancholic, each one echoing the tension he felt. Ryan Callahan, noticing him from across the room, walked over with a warm smile. "Sammy," he said gently, leaning against the piano, "you seem troubled today. What's on your mind?" Sammy hesitated, then exhaled. "It's Sophie. She's with Derek now. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't treat her right, but she's smiling, laughing. I feel like I'm losing her." Ryan's expression softened with understanding. "Ah, matters of the heart. They are rarely easy, especially when the people we care about are caught between attention and affection. But remember, Sam, love isn't possession. It's patience, support, and honesty. Be there for her, not as a shadow, but as someone she can trust." The following morning, the crisp autumn air carried whispers of the previous day's drama as Sammy spotted Sophie sitting alone under a large oak, books scattered around her. He approached cautiously. "Sophie," he said gently. She looked up, her green eyes tinged with fatigue and worry. "Hey, Sam," she replied softly. He crouched beside her, careful not to crowd her. "Are you okay?" Sophie sighed, glancing toward the path where Derek would surely appear at any moment. "I don't know. Derek, he can be so careless. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one taking things seriously." Sammy nodded slowly, his heart aching. "You deserve someone who respects you, Soph, who sees you for you, not just for appearances." Sophie hesitated, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "It's not that simple," she said softly, voice barely above a whisper. "I've known Derek for a while. Everyone says he's charming, popular. I don't know what to think." Sammy's gaze softened, a mix of patience and quiet determination. "Popularity doesn't equal love, Soph. You've known me all your life. I've always been here. I've always cared." The words hung in the air, unspoken but clear. Sophie looked at him, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. The bond they had shared as children was deep, but now complicated by feelings neither could fully confront. That evening, during a rehearsal for the school's upcoming music showcase, Sammy and Sophie were paired for a duet. Ryan observed quietly from the corner, knowing the significance of this pairing. "Play from the heart," he advised softly, before stepping back. The first notes were tentative, hesitant, echoing the uncertainty that lingered between them. Yet as the melody progressed, something shifted. Sammy's fingers moved with care, attuned to Sophie's rhythm, and Sophie responded instinctively, her own notes blending in harmony. The music became a conversation, a dialogue between hearts long familiar yet newly awakened. After rehearsal, Sophie lingered, her gaze downward, as Sammy gathered his courage. "Sophie," he began softly, "about today, about the music. It's like we understand each other without words. That's how I've always felt with you." Sophie's lips parted slightly, as if to respond, then closed again, uncertainty flickering across her face. "Sammy, Derek," she began, her voice faltering. He shook his head gently. "It's not about Derek, it's about us, about what we feel, what's real. I don't want to pressure you. I just want you to know I'm here, always, and I will wait, no matter how long it takes, for you to see what's been in front of you all along." Sophie looked up, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, torn between the comfort of familiarity and the allure of Derek's charm. "Sammy, I don't know what to do," she whispered. He smiled softly, a mix of reassurance and hope. "Then don't decide right now. Just be honest with yourself. That's all I ask." The evening air was cool and crisp, carrying the faint rustle of leaves around them, a reminder that change often arrives quietly, like the turning of the seasons. In that moment, their childhood friendship, tested, strained, and vulnerable, began to realign. The first tentative steps towards something deeper, something true. The tension between Sammy, Sophie, and Derek remained a quiet undercurrent, a test of patience, trust, and authenticity. Yet Ryan's subtle guidance, the lessons of connection through music, and Sammy's steadfast presence provided a foundation for Sophie to see beyond superficial charm. As the days passed, she began to recognize the depth of Sammy's care, his unwavering loyalty, and the quiet strength that had always been beside her. And while Derek's recklessness created moments of doubt, it also illuminated what truly mattered: authenticity, respect, and the enduring bond between two hearts who had grown up together, learning life's lessons, side by side.
The late morning sun cast a golden glow over Hawthorne Academy's expansive courtyard as Vic Morales, leaned casually against the ivy-clad wall of the administration building. He ran a hand through his tousled dark hair, scanning the students bustling across the quad with a quiet but attentive gaze. Vic was well-liked among his peers, not because of wealth or prestige, but for his easy confidence and genuine charm. Today, however, his focus was drawn elsewhere. Across the street, at the gates of St. Margaret's Academy, a new girl caught his attention. She moved with a confident grace, her long dark hair catching the sunlight as she adjusted her books in her arms. Vic's eyebrow shot up slightly. There was something different about her, a spark of intensity in her gaze that immediately piqued his interest. "Who's that?" he muttered to himself, curiosity tugging at his chest. He had seen plenty of students from St. Margaret's come for exchange programs or school collaborations, but something about her aura suggested she was not like the others. Their first encounter occurred during the morning assembly, where both schools gathered for a joint orientation. Vic, trying to appear casual, found himself seated beside her. "Hey, I'm Victor." He extended a hand with a friendly smile. She glanced at him briefly, her dark eyes sharp and assessing, before offering a small, polite nod. "Isabel. Ish," she replied, crisply, her tone curt but not unfriendly. Vic noticed the subtle edge in her demeanor, a confidence that didn't bend easily. "Ish," he repeated, testing the name on his tongue. "Nice to meet you. Ish. You're new here?" Ish arched an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. Yes, and yes, I prefer to get my bearings before engaging in small talk. Her voice carried a firmness that both intrigued and slightly frustrated Vic. He laughed lightly, a smooth, easy sound meant to ease the tension. Fair enough. I like a girl who sets boundaries. Ish's lips quirked into a faint smirk, though her eyes betrayed cautious amusement. I don't need to impress anyone. I prefer sincerity over charm. Vic felt a thrill at her words. Here was someone who could match him, challenge him, and perhaps even unsettle him in a way that few had before. Over the next few days, their paths crossed repeatedly at school events and joint rehearsals for the upcoming annual dance showcase. Each encounter began with subtle friction, a playful sparring that masked mutual curiosity. During a rehearsal in the music hall, Vic accidentally stepped on Ish's foot while adjusting his position. "Watch where you're going," she snapped, stepping back sharply. Vic raised his hands in mock surrender, grinning. "Apologies, General. Didn't mean to invade your space. But hey, that's what happens when we're both trying to be great at this, right?" Ish shook her head, a faint blush creeping onto her cheeks. "Just pay attention next time." Despite the friction, there was an undeniable chemistry that neither could ignore. During a break in practice, they found themselves seated on opposite benches, stealing glances at one another. Vic broke the silence first. "So, Ish, you've got talent. I can see it in the way you hold yourself with the music, the precision, the intensity." Ish crossed her arms, pretending not to care. "I'm here to perform well, not for compliments." Vic chuckled softly. "Of course, but it's hard to not notice when someone's passion shines this brightly. Makes the whole rehearsal more interesting." Ish's lips twitched in a suppressed smile, and Vic knew he had hit a subtle chord. Their interactions became a dance of words as much as the physical rehearsals. Vic noticed the meticulous way Ish approached each movement, the careful attention she paid to details he might overlook, and the fire in her eyes when she corrected a step. Ish in turn observed Vic's natural charm, his natural confidence, and the subtle care he took when guiding others through difficult sequences. They argued over positions, timing, and technique, but beneath the disagreements, a budding respect, and perhaps something more, began to flourish. One afternoon, during a rehearsal break, they ended up in the courtyard together, the sun warm on their faces. "You know," Vic said casually, "Ish, you're harder to read than anyone I've met here." Ish tilted her head, her dark eyes meeting his, a faint challenge in her gaze. "That's because I'm not interested in being predictable," she replied. Vic grinned. "Good, because I like a challenge." There was a pause, an unspoken understanding passing between them, a subtle acknowledgement that the friction they felt was no accident. It was magnetic, inevitable, and slightly thrilling. As the days progressed, their playful rivalry evolved into collaboration. Ryan Callahan, observing the dynamic from a distance, quietly encouraged interactions without forcing them. During a coaching session, he suggested, "Vic, Ish, try leading and following each other in the next sequence. Feel the rhythm together. Trust each other. It's not just about steps, it's about connection." Both students hesitated, exchanging wary glances. "Trust?" Ish repeated, eyebrow raised. "I don't know if I—" Vic interrupted smoothly. "Relax. We'll figure it out together. No pressure." And when the music began, their movements, once stiff and cautious, flowed with surprising harmony, a silent conversation expressed through rhythm and gesture. After the rehearsal, Ish lingered by the edge of the practice hall, tying her shoelaces, while Vic approached casually. "Not bad today," he said lightly, tone teasing. Ish looked up, eyes narrowing slightly, but a small smile tugged at her lips. "Not bad for you too," she replied. There was a shared acknowledgement in that exchange, a subtle recognition that the friction they felt was giving way to mutual admiration. They spoke in short bursts, each word loaded with meaning, each glance a bridge across the gap of initial misunderstanding. Outside the music hall, the academy grounds were alive with students practicing for the showcase, laughter, chatter, and occasional arguments filling the air. Vic and Ish found themselves walking side by side, a silent understanding settling into place. "You know, Vic, Ish, you make all of this more exciting."
Ish's dark eyes flicked toward him, and for the first time she allowed a genuine, unguarded smile. "You're not half bad yourself, Vic," she admitted quietly, a soft warmth that contrasted sharply with her usual reserve. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the academy's tall trees, both students reflected on the day's events. Ish, walking back towards St. Margaret's, replayed the interactions, the subtle teasing, the moments of shared understanding, and realized that Vic was unlike anyone she had met. Not because he was charming or confident, but because he could match her intensity and challenge her in ways that were exhilarating rather than frustrating. Vic, on the other hand, felt a thrill at the discovery of someone who refused to be swayed by charm alone, someone whose fire and determination ignited a curiosity and admiration he could not ignore. By the end of the week, it was clear to both students, and to the few observant teachers, that the friction between Vic and Ish was no accident. What had begun as misunderstandings and minor clashes was gradually transforming into a connection built on challenge, mutual respect, and a spark of attraction that neither could yet fully define. Ryan, watching from the sidelines, smiled quietly, recognizing the first signs of a relationship nurtured not by recklessness, but by trust, effort, and the slow, deliberate uncovering of hearts. The dynamics between Vic and Ish set the stage for a romance unlike others at Hawthorne Academy, a bond born of friction, curiosity, and discovery. Their playful arguments, shared moments of vulnerability, and subtle gestures of attention hinted at something powerful, something that, if allowed to grow, could challenge not only their own understanding of connection, but also the rigid atmosphere of the academy itself. And as Vic walked back toward his dorm that evening, thoughts of Ish lingering in his mind, he realized that for the first time in a long while, someone had truly captivated him. Someone worth taking the risk to know, to understand, and perhaps to care for deeply.
The late morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Karen Blake's modest music room, casting warm patterns across the piano keys. Kyle Donovan shifted nervously on the worn wooden bench, clutching his sheet music. He had never been particularly confident around adults outside his teachers at Hawthorne Academy, let alone a respected music instructor like Karen. His heart pounded with equal parts excitement and apprehension. This was his first official tutoring session with her nephew, Ethan, and by extension, his first extended interaction with Karen herself. Karen entered the room quietly, her dark hair pulled back in a loose bun and her warm brown eyes studying Kyle with a mix of curiosity and gentle scrutiny. "Kyle Donovan, right?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. Kyle rose, nodding politely. "Yes, ma'am. Thank you for letting me tutor Ethan." She gave a small, appreciative smile, gesturing toward the piano. "He's been struggling with his scales and sight reading. I hope you're patient. He's talented, but easily frustrated." Kyle's hands tightened around his notebook, but he forced a calm smile. "I understand. I'll do my best." Ryan Callahan had given Kyle careful guidance before this meeting. "Kyle," he had said, "this isn't just about teaching music. This is about trust. Karen is cautious, understandably so. Start slow, show patience, and let her see your sincerity. She'll respond to effort and respect more than charm." Kyle had repeated the advice in his mind as he stepped into the room, determined to leave a good impression, but also feeling the weight of nervous anticipation. Ethan, a shy boy with tousled brown hair, sat at the piano, fidgeting with the music sheets. "Hi, Ethan," Kyle said gently, kneeling beside him. "I'm here to help you, okay? No pressure. We'll take it step by step." Ethan glanced at him warily, then back at the keys. "Okay," he whispered, fingers hovering over the notes. Kyle smiled reassuringly. "Good. Let's start with something simple. A scale, slowly. Listen to me, then we'll do it together." As Ethan played, mistakes and stumbles punctuated the melody, but Kyle maintained a calm tone, encouraging him. "That's all right, Ethan. Try again. You've got this." Karen watched quietly from across the room, impressed by the patience Kyle displayed.
It was evident that he wasn't just focused on the music. He was attuned to Ethan's mood, his frustration, and his small victories. She cleared her throat gently. "Kyle, I can see you connect with him. Most students would just drill and correct. But you adapt to his pace. That's admirable." Kyle glanced up, slightly flustered. "Thank you, Miss Blake. I really want him to enjoy music. I know it can be frustrating if it feels like a chore." She gave a Hawthorne approving smile. "Patience and empathy, qualities I value highly. You're doing more than just tutoring." Over the next few weeks, Kyle's sessions with Ethan became a regular occurrence. Each day he arrived with a mix of nerves and excitement, eager to teach, but also to learn from Karen's subtle feedback and quiet observations. Slowly, a rapport developed between Kyle and Karen, built on mutual respect and a shared dedication to music. One afternoon, as Ethan left the room to fetch a new sheet of music, Karen leaned against the piano, her arms crossed lightly. "Kyle, can I ask you something?" she said softly. Kyle, slightly startled, nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She studied him for a moment before continuing. "What made you want to work with Ethan? Not many students take this seriously, especially outside of school."
Kyle hesitated, glancing at the piano keys as if seeking courage from them. I like music, and I know how much it can mean to someone, how it can build confidence. Ryan told me this was a chance not just to teach, but to connect, to show someone they're capable. I wanted to, I guess, make a difference. For him, and maybe for me too. Karen's expression softened, a mixture of understanding and curiosity in her gaze. "For you too?" she prompted gently. Kyle nodded, cheeks slightly flushed. "Yes, ma'am. I've realized that teaching is more than just notes and scales. It's about patience, trust, and understanding the person behind the music." Karen's lips curved into a thoughtful smile. "You speak sincerely, Kyle. That quality is rare in someone your age. Most are focused on accolades, not connection." Kyle looked up, meeting her gaze. "I know. That's why I want to do this right. Not for recognition, not for grades, but for Ethan and, well, for you too, I guess." Karen's eyes widened slightly, caught off guard by the unexpected admission. She laughed softly, a melodic sound that put Kyle at ease. "I appreciate your honesty, Kyle, and I can see you have a good heart. That matters as much as talent." One evening, after a particularly successful session with Ethan, Kyle offered to help Karen put away the music sheets and instruments. As they worked side by side, the air between them was filled with quiet conversation, laughter, and a growing sense of ease. "You know, Miss Blake," Kyle said casually, glancing at her, "I think Ethan's progress is thanks not just to me, but to your guidance. You've made him feel confident, not pressured. That makes all the difference." Karen nodded appreciatively, her eyes reflecting a warmth she rarely showed to anyone outside her family. "It's true, Kyle, but you've complemented that guidance well. I see someone who genuinely cares, who is willing to invest time and patience. That is rare." As autumn deepened, so did the subtle connection between Kyle and Karen. Their conversations, once limited to music, began to touch on life, memories, and dreams. Kyle discovered Karen's love for classical composers, her quiet fondness for autumn afternoons, and her gentle, protective nature toward her nephew. Karen, in turn, noticed Kyle's determination, humility, and the unassuming way he expressed care, qualities that were increasingly hard to ignore. One afternoon, as they walked back to the music room after a brief break, Kyle said quietly, "Miss Blake, I hope I'm not overstepping, but I enjoy our time together, teaching,
talking, being here. Karen glanced at him, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. Kyle, you're sincere, and I appreciate that. I enjoy it too. But you must understand, I'm cautious. Life hasn't been easy, and trust doesn't come instantly. Kyle nodded, understanding her hesitation. I know. I don't expect it to. I just want to be patient, to show you that I'm reliable, that I care. Karen's gaze softened, her voice gentle. That's all anyone can ask for. Let's take it one step at a time. If Ethan progresses, if we connect, then perhaps we'll see where it leads. Kyle smiled, a quiet mix of relief and hope washing over him. The slow, deliberate pace of trust and affection suited both of them, allowing a bond to develop naturally rather than rushed or forced. By the end of the month, their routine had become a comforting rhythm. Kyle would arrive for tutoring, help Ethan with practice, and gradually share moments of conversation and connection with Karen. Their dynamic hinted at a romance, but one built on mutual respect, patience, and understanding rather than impulsive emotion. Ryan, observing from the sidelines, smiled quietly to himself, knowing that Kyle's efforts were a testament to the principles he was instilling at Hawthorne. Love and connection nurtured with care, authenticity, and guidance. And as the leaves turned deep amber outside, Kyle walked home one evening thinking of the gentle smile Karen had given him that afternoon, the quiet reassurance in her voice, and the small, deliberate steps they were taking together. He realized that the path to her trust, and perhaps her heart, was not about grand gestures or dramatic confessions. It was about consistency, empathy, and the quiet power of showing care, just as Ryan had taught him. And for Kyle Donovan, that was more meaningful than any applause, any accolade, or any fleeting charm he had ever known.
The crisp autumn air hung heavy with the scent of fallen leaves as Sophie Adams walked through the campus courtyard, her books clutched tightly to her chest. Her mind, usually focused on studies and rehearsals, was in turmoil. Derek Hughes, her current boyfriend, had promised her that he was attentive, caring, and devoted, but over the past few weeks, cracks in his charm had begun to show. She had started noticing the way he shrugged off her concerns, teased her relentlessly, and prioritized his own ego over her feelings. A growing unease gnawed at her, but she had resisted confronting it, afraid of shattering the illusion she had been holding on to. It was during a rehearsal break in the music hall that the truth became undeniable. Derek, frustrated with a minor mistake in his performance, snapped at Sophie, his voice loud enough to startle the other students. "You're ruining this, Sophie. Can't you get anything right?" The words hit her like a physical blow. Sophie's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her sheet music, a mixture of shock and hurt washing over her. The other students exchanged awkward glances, unsure whether to intervene, while Derek stormed off to practice alone, leaving a tense silence behind him. Sophie sank into a nearby chair, the weight of the moment pressing on her chest. She had spent so long trying to justify Derek's behavior, convincing herself that his harshness was merely a reflection of his high standards or stress. But seeing him lash out so carelessly, with no thought to her feelings, made her realize that she had been blind to the truth. The person she thought she knew, the charming, attentive Derek, was not who she had believed him to be. A quiet sadness settled over her, a recognition that her heart had been leaning in the wrong direction all along. Sammy Cooper, who had been rehearsing nearby, noticed her distress and approached cautiously. "Sophie?" he asked gently, his voice soft but full of concern. Sophie looked up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Sammy, I don't know what to do. she admitted, her voice trembling. He knelt beside her, careful not to crowd her space. "It's okay," he said reassuringly. "Whatever it is, you don't have to face it alone. Talk to me." Sophie took a deep breath, her emotions threatening to spill over. "Derek, he's not who I thought he was. I thought I loved him, but now I see how careless he really is, how he doesn't care. Not really." Sammy's gaze softened, a mix of understanding and quiet hope in his eyes. "Sophie, I've known you your whole life. I've always seen the real you, the one who's kind, strong, and thoughtful. You deserve someone who values you, who sees you for who you truly are, not someone who dismisses your feelings." Sophie's heart fluttered at his words, a warmth spreading through her chest that had been absent during her time with Derek. She had always trusted Sammy, always confided in him, and now she realized that the love she had been denying was the one that had been there all along. The following day, Sophie found herself walking past the quad, lost in thought. She spotted Derek speaking with a group of friends, his laughter loud and careless, completely oblivious to the hurt he had caused her. Her stomach churned with a mixture of anger and relief. Anger at his selfishness, relief that the truth was finally clear. She made a quiet decision. She could no longer allow herself to be drawn into a relationship that diminished her worth. She needed honesty, respect, and the kind of love that Sammy had always quietly offered.
Later, during another rehearsal session, Sophie approached Sammy, who was practicing near the back of the hall. "Sammy," she said softly, her voice tentative but resolute. He looked up immediately, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "Sophie, are you okay?" She nodded, a small smile breaking through her uncertainty. "I've realized something. I've been blind, caught up in what I thought I wanted instead of what I truly needed. I see it now, and I see you, Sammy. I've always known you were there, and I want to be honest with you, with both of us." Sammy's eyes lit up with quiet hope, his heart pounding at her words. "Sophie, I've waited for this, for you to see what's been in front of us all along. I never wanted to pressure you, only to show you that I care, that I'm here, always." Sophie reached out, her hand brushing against his. "I see that now, and I can't deny it anymore. I've been holding on to the wrong feelings, and I want to start again, with honesty, with trust, and with you." The warmth in her eyes, the sincerity in her tone, melted the last of Sammy's doubts. Over the next few days, the two grew closer, their bond strengthening through shared music, laughter, and quiet conversations. Sophie discovered the comfort of being with someone who truly listened, who valued her thoughts and feelings, and who respected her boundaries. The awkwardness and tension that had once characterized their friendship transformed into a gentle, natural intimacy. During a lunch break, sitting under the large oak tree near the practice fields, Sammy smiled warmly at her. "It feels like we're finally on the same page, doesn't it?" Sophie laughed softly, nodding. "Yes, like we finally stopped pretending and started being ourselves." The reconciliation was not marked by grand gestures or dramatic confessions, but by small, meaningful moments. A shared joke during rehearsal, a quiet conversation about music, a look exchanged across the quad. Sophie realized that the love she sought had never been flashy or loud. It had been steady, patient, and enduring, embodied by Sammy all along. And as the days passed, she found herself feeling lighter, happier, and more confident, no longer burdened by the illusions that Derek had created. One evening, as the autumn sun dipped below the horizon, Sophie and Sammy walked together along the tree-lined path near the dormitories. The cool air carried the scent of fallen leaves, a reminder of change and renewal. "Sammy," Sophie said softly, her hand brushing against his. "I'm glad I finally saw the truth. About Derek and about us." Sammy squeezed her hand gently, a smile lighting his face. "Me too, Sophie.
It took time, but I'm glad you realized it. We're better for it. And now, we can really start something real." As they continued walking, the weight of the past lifted, replaced by a sense of hope and possibility. Sophie felt a quiet joy she hadn't experienced in weeks, the knowledge that she was with someone who valued her, cared for her, and shared a bond built on trust and genuine connection. Sammy, for his part, felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that patience and honesty had won the day, and that their friendship could finally blossom into the love they had both quietly harbored for years. By the end of that week, their reconciliation was apparent to all who observed them. The subtle glances, gentle touches, and quiet laughter spoke of a love both tender and resilient. Derek's careless behavior, once a source of confusion and heartache, now seemed distant and irrelevant. Sophie had finally recognized where her heart truly belonged, and in doing so, she and Sammy were able to embrace a connection that was authentic, enduring, and full of promise.
The school gymnasium had been transformed into a vibrant rehearsal space, strings of lights casting a soft glow over the polished wooden floor. The air buzzed with excitement and anticipation as students from Hawthorne and St. Margaret's prepared for the annual dance showcase. Vic Morales, adjusted his jacket nervously, glancing around the room, trying to hide the butterflies in his stomach. He had rehearsed countless times for music and performance, but partnering with Isabel Ish Rivera for the showcase brought an entirely new level of tension. There was something about her intensity, her focus, that both intimidated and exhilarated him. Ish arrived at the gym, her movements precise, her posture impeccable, and her dark eyes scanning the space with quiet determination. When she spotted Vic, she raised an eyebrow, a slight smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. "Ready to see if you can keep up?" she asked, her voice calm but challenging. Vic grinned, feeling a spark of excitement. "I'll do my best not to step on your toes, literally or figuratively." Ish chuckled softly, a rare break in her usual composed demeanor, and extended her hand. "Let's see what you've got, Morales." Their first attempt at the choreography was tentative, each movement cautious as they tried to sync with one another. Vic noticed Ish's meticulous attention to detail, the way she anticipated every step, every turn, with fluid precision. He adjusted quickly, striving to match her pace, feeling a thrill with each successful connection. "You're incredible, Ish," he said after completing a difficult sequence. Ish's eyes softened slightly, a faint blush appearing on her cheeks. "You're not bad yourself, Vic. For someone who likes to rush ahead, you're surprisingly coordinated." As the days of rehearsal continued, their initial friction slowly transformed into a seamless partnership. The tension that had marked their first interactions became a source of chemistry, each challenge fostering a deeper understanding of one another. Vic admired Ish's focus and discipline, while Ish found herself drawn to Vic's adaptability and subtle confidence. During a break one afternoon, they sat on the edge of the gym floor, catching their breath. Vic glanced at her and asked softly, "Ish, can I ask you something?" She turned toward him, curious. "Of course." He hesitated for a moment, searching for the right words. Do you feel it too? The connection when we dance? I know it's part of the performance, but it feels more." Ish's dark eyes met his, and for the first time, she allowed a vulnerability to seep through her usual guarded expression. "I do," she admitted quietly. "It's surprising. I wasn't expecting it, but I can't deny it. There's something different when we're together on the floor." Their conversations became more personal, blending with the rhythm of their rehearsals. Between steps and spins, they shared stories, laughter, and glimpses of their true selves. Vic learned about Ish's determination to balance academics, performance, and personal growth, while Ish discovered Vic's loyalty, humor, and quiet thoughtfulness. During a particularly intense practice, Vic misstepped, nearly colliding with Ish. Instead of frustration, Ish reached out to steady him, their hands brushing. The touch lingered, sending a jolt through both of them. Vic laughed nervously, Guess we're connected, huh? Ish's smile was soft, almost shy. Seems that way, she murmured. The growth of their connection did not go unnoticed. Ryan, observing from the sidelines, smiled quietly, recognizing the early signs of genuine affection blossoming between them. "You two," he said during a brief break, "are learning more than choreography here. You're learning to communicate, to trust, and to connect. That's what makes a great partnership, and perhaps something even more." Vic glanced at Ish, a small smirk playing on his lips. "Something even more?" Ish raised an eyebrow, playful but cautious. "Ryan, don't start reading into things." Ryan only chuckled, letting the observation hang in the air, a subtle acknowledgement that Vic and Ish's relationship was evolving beyond the dance floor.
As the showcase approached, their rehearsals grew more intense, the choreography demanding precision, stamina, and flawless timing. Yet each challenge only strengthened their bond. They began to anticipate each other's movements instinctively, sharing unspoken cues and subtle gestures. One evening, after a particularly grueling practice, Vic wiped sweat from his brow and turned to Ish. "You know, I think we're ready. Not just for the showcase, but for this," he said, gesturing vaguely between them. Ish laughed softly, a sound that was warm and unguarded. "For this, meaning the dancing or whatever this is between us?" Vic grinned, feeling the weight of his growing affection. "Both, I guess. Dancing brought us together, but I think there's something more here, something real." Ish's gaze softened, her usual composure giving way to a hint of vulnerability. "I feel it too, Vic. It's unexpected, but I can't deny it anymore." The admission hung between them, delicate yet charged, as if the air itself had shifted to acknowledge the moment. During the final rehearsal before the showcase, their connection reached a new depth. Every step, every spin, every lift was executed with precision and fluidity, their chemistry evident in the ease with which they moved together. When the music reached its crescendo, Vic caught Ish's gaze, and for a brief instant, time seemed to stand still. There was no need for words. Their movements, their shared glances, and the unspoken trust conveyed the feelings that had been growing steadily over weeks of collaboration. After the rehearsal, they lingered in the gym, reluctant to break the spell of their shared rhythm. Vic broke the silence softly. "Ish, I know the showcase is what everyone will remember, but I think I'll remember this moment. Us, here, together." Ish's eyes glimmered with emotion, a rare openness that she allowed only in moments of honesty. "I'll remember it too, Vic. More than anything, I think." Their hands brushed again, this time with deliberate intent, the contact affirming the unspoken feelings between them. By the night of the showcase, their chemistry was undeniable. As they took the floor, the audience captivated by their performance. Every movement reflected not only skill and practice, but a growing affection that radiated between them. The spins, lifts, and synchronized steps became a language of connection, their shared glances speaking volumes. Vic felt Ish's confidence supporting him, while Ish felt Vic's steady presence guiding her through each challenging move. The performance was flawless, but more importantly, it was honest, a reflection of the bond that had formed in the weeks leading up to this night. After the final note, the applause erupted, filling the gym with thunderous appreciation. Vic and Ish, breathless and smiling, turned toward each other. Their eyes met, and in that shared glance, they acknowledged everything that had grown between them: trust, admiration, and the spark of love that had blossomed in the space between friction and collaboration. Vic extended his hand, not as a dance partner, but as something more personal. Ish took it, their fingers interlacing naturally, a simple gesture that held profound meaning. Walking off the floor together, away from the spotlight and the cheers, Vic whispered softly, "Ish, I think we've found more than just a dance partnership." Ish smiled, her usual guarded expression softened with warmth and affection. "Yes, Vic, I think we have. In that quiet moment, amidst the lingering echo of applause, both realized that their connection, once marked with friction and challenge, had grown into something genuine, something neither had expected but both deeply cherished. The weeks that followed were filled with subtle gestures, shared rehearsals, and moments of laughter and tenderness. Vic and Ish continued to explore their feelings, learning to balance attraction with respect, affection with patience. The chemistry that had sparked during their first rehearsals blossomed into a meaningful relationship, one grounded in understanding, trust, and the quiet joy of discovering someone who truly complemented their own spirit. And as they walked across the campus together one evening, hands brushing and smiles exchanged, it was clear to anyone who observed them that the sparks that had ignited on the dance floor had grown into the warm, steady flame of young love.
The crisp morning air at Hawthorne Academy was unusually tense. Ivy-draped walls, normally serene in the soft light of dawn, seemed to loom heavier than ever. Students moved through the quad with their usual energy, but there was a palpable unease in the air, a subtle undercurrent of anxiety that had begun to spread over the campus. Word had reached Richard Stanton through whispered reports, rumors, and careful observation. The students were growing closer, forming bonds that defied the school's strict anti-romance policies. He had tolerated minor flirtations in the past, but the recent developments were different. They were open, bold, and directly challenging his authority. Richard strode down the hallway with deliberate steps, his polished shoes echoing against the marble floors. Faculty members who caught sight of him straightened instinctively. His reputation as the iron-handed principal preceded him. Reaching the staff lounge, he addressed the teachers with a voice both calm and icy. "It has come to my attention that some of our students are engaging in behaviors that are entirely unacceptable," he said, his sharp gaze sweeping the room. "Hawthorne Academy has thrived for 25 years because of discipline, honor, and tradition. I will not allow sentimentality or foolish distractions to undermine our principles." His voice carried a weight that silenced the room, leaving faculty and staff unsettled. By mid-morning, the students were summoned to the grand auditorium for a formal assembly, a rare event signaling the gravity of Richard's intentions. The boys filed in, murmuring among themselves, sensing that this meeting was different. At the front, Richard stood with a measured expression, his posture rigid, hands clasped behind his back. "Gentlemen," he began, voice resonant, "I have observed a disturbing trend among some of you. Friendships are expected, camaraderie encouraged, but emotional attachments, romantic involvement, and displays of affection have no place at Hawthorne Academy." His gaze swept across the room, landing on familiar faces: Vic Morales, Sophie Adams, Sammy Cooper, Tyle Donovan, and others who had begun exploring connections outside the rules. A hush fell over the students, a mixture of apprehension and simmering frustration filling the air. Richard continued, "Effective immediately, the following policies will be enforced. Any student found engaging in romantic activity, whether verbal, physical, or digital, will face immediate disciplinary action. This may include suspension, loss of privileges, and in severe cases, expulsion." A murmur ran through the auditorium, but Richard raised a hand, silencing them. "Do not test my resolve. Hawthorne Academy was built on discipline, respect, and tradition. I will not allow sentiment to erode these foundations." Outside the auditorium, Ryan Callahan observed the assembly with a quiet but intense expression. He understood the stakes. Richard's actions were not merely administrative, but deeply personal, stemming from decades of pride, fear, and unresolved grief. As students exited, some visibly anxious, others whispering about the new rules, Ryan approached Vic and Ish, who were walking together with worried glances.
"I know this feels restrictive," he said softly, placing a reassuring hand on Vic's shoulder. "But rules like this are meant to provoke thought, not submission. Remember, connection isn't about rebellion, it's about honesty, trust, and courage." Meanwhile, Sophie and Sammy lingered in the hallway, speaking in hushed tones. "This is intense," Sophie said, biting her lip. "I thought we were just starting to find our rhythm, and now?" Sammy nodded solemnly. "He wants control over everything, every glance, every touch, every conversation. But I think this only proves how important it is to hold on to what matters. We can't let fear dictate how we feel." Sophie reached for his hand briefly, a quiet gesture of solidarity. "You're right. We'll find a way."
In the staff lounge, Richard convened a meeting with his senior faculty to outline the new enforcement measures. "Teachers will monitor students more closely," he said, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. "Any sign of inappropriate interaction, holding hands, private meetings, notes, messages, must be reported immediately. This school is not a playground. It is a training ground for discipline, intellect, and moral fortitude. Do not underestimate my resolve." Mr. Thornton hesitated. "Sir, some of the students are responding positively to Ryan's approach. Could this strictness backfire?" Richard's expression hardened. "Ryan Callahan's philosophy is precisely the problem. It encourages weakness. My duty is to preserve the academy, not indulge youthful folly." As the week progressed, the students felt the weight of Richard's tightening grip. Vic found himself glancing over his shoulder during rehearsals with Ish, cautious of prying eyes. Sophie and Sammy practiced in quiet corners of the campus, their whispered conversations laden with unspoken urgency. Kyle's sessions with Karen became more discreet, avoiding attention that could invite scrutiny. Even minor gestures, smiles, brief touches, fleeting glances were now potential triggers for disciplinary action. The once open atmosphere of exploration, trust, and connection had grown fraught with tension. In the dormitories, whispers circulated late into the night. "Did you hear about the new rules?" one student asked, voice low. "Yeah, if anyone's caught, they're toast," another replied, shaking his head. Anxiety mingled with quiet rebellion, a sense that the stricter measures would only intensify the bonds they were trying to preserve. Vic confided in Ish, his voice low. "It's getting worse, isn't it? Richard's rules, I don't think he realizes how much he's driving us together by trying to push us apart." Ish nodded, gripping his hand briefly. "Exactly. We just have to be careful, but also honest with ourselves. That's what matters." Ryan observed these developments with concern, knowing the students' resilience would soon be tested. He called a quiet meeting with the three key student couples, Vic and Ish, Sophie and Sammy, and Kyle and Karen's connection, offering guidance without dictating their choices. Authority will always try to control what it fears, but true connection cannot be silenced. Be mindful, be careful, but don't lose sight of who you are and what you feel. You're not defying authority for the sake of rebellion. You're affirming the humanity that makes life meaningful. By the end of the week, Hawthorne Academy was a place of contrasting energies. The halls retained their traditional grandeur, the ivy walls still gleaming in autumn light. Yet underneath, currents of tension and quiet determination flowed among the students. Richard's anti-romance policies had imposed fear and caution, but they had also, paradoxically, heightened the students' awareness of their emotions and attachments. Every stolen glance, whispered joke, and brief touch became charged with significance. In trying to crush sentiment, Richard had ignited a subtle resistance, one rooted not in rebellion, but in the undeniable human need for connection. Richard, reviewing reports from faculty one evening in his office, felt a grim satisfaction that order was being maintained. Yet even as he meticulously noted every violation, a flicker of unease crossed his mind. There was a growing awareness among students, a determination that could not be fully quelled by rules alone. He dismissed the thought quickly, shaking his head. They will learn that Hawthorne Academy is governed by discipline, not desire. Emotion cannot dictate their actions here. It will not. But deep down, the seeds of confrontation between tradition and change, authority and love, had already been sown. And so the stage was set. Hawthorne Academy's ivy-covered halls echoed with whispers, the glow of lamplight catching the apprehensive faces of students navigating the new restrictions. Friendships were tested, alliances strengthened, and the boundaries of heart and courage were measured against the iron will of a principal who believed he could control more than rules. He believed he could control the human heart itself. The coming weeks promised struggle, revelation, and the quiet, simmering defiance of love in a place determined to suppress it.
The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Hawthorne Academy's music hall, casting long shadows across polished wooden floors. The hall, usually a place of disciplined practice and quiet concentration, had taken on a different energy in recent weeks. Students entered with a cautious excitement, their interactions charged with a subtle defiance. Though Richard Stanton's new anti-romance policies hung over them like a shadow, Ryan Callahan's presence had begun to infuse the halls with something richer: hope, courage, and the quiet audacity to follow their hearts. Ryan leaned against the grand piano at the center of the hall, watching as Vic and Ish rehearsed a complicated sequence for their next showcase. He clapped lightly after a particularly precise spin. "Beautiful," he said warmly. "You're not just moving to the music, you're communicating, trusting each other. That's the essence of connection." Vic paused, slightly nervous, glancing toward the doorway as if anticipating a report from Richard. "Thanks, Mr. Callahan," he muttered. Ish's expression softened as she looked at Ryan. "It feels easier to be ourselves here, even with the rules looming over us." Ryan nodded knowingly. "Exactly. The rules may try to confine you, but your hearts cannot be confined. That's what matters." In a quiet corner, Sophie and Sammy practiced a duet in near silence, the soft strains of their piano accompaniment filling the space. Ryan approached, crouching slightly to meet their gaze. "You two are doing wonderfully," he encouraged. "Remember, emotion isn't something to hide. It's a strength, not a weakness. Discipline matters, yes, but discipline without feeling is hollow." Sophie glanced at him, eyes wide. "It feels dangerous, though. Richard will notice sooner or later." Ryan smiled, his tone gentle yet firm. "Then let him notice. You're not acting out of defiance. You're being true to yourselves. That is something no rule can take away." Word of Ryan's philosophy began to spread quietly through the student body. Whispers in the hallways, fleeting conversations in the dormitories, and supportive glances during classes created a subtle yet tangible sense of solidarity. Students who had been shy or hesitant found courage in his guidance, emboldened to show kindness, support, and affection within the limits they could navigate safely. Kyle, sitting at a piano in the music room while Karen observed from a nearby bench, smiled as he played a delicate melody. It's strange how just being honest about feelings can feel rebellious, but it feels right. Karen reached over, placing a hand on his shoulder. "It does feel right. You're showing integrity and respect at the same time. That's rare." Even the smallest acts of connection, friendly gestures, encouraging words, and shared laughter began to feel like a quiet rebellion against Richard's iron grip.
Ryan encouraged the students to find meaning in these moments. Every act of honesty, every sincere compliment, every small display of trust is a victory. You're showing that human connection cannot be extinguished by fear or intimidation. These victories may seem minor, but they accumulate. They build a culture that honors both heart and intellect. Richard, however, was acutely aware of the changes around him. From his office, he observed students in the quad, noting subtle smiles exchanged, hands brushing, or lingering conversations that had previously been innocuous. His face tightened, lips pressing into a firm line. He summoned Mr. Thornton, who had been quietly reporting on student behavior. "Do you see it?" he asked, gesturing toward the windows. "They are emboldened. This is Ryan Callahan's doing. He is undermining every principle Hawthorne Academy was built upon." Thornton hesitated. "Sir, it may not be intentional on the students' part. They're simply exploring social growth. Perhaps strict enforcement might quell the tension." Richard shook his head sharply. "No. Allowing this to continue is a dangerous path. Discipline must be absolute. Emotional indulgence will not be tolerated."
Meanwhile, Ryan noticed the change in student behavior and seized the opportunity to deepen their understanding. During a music theory session, he paused mid-lesson, looking at each student individually. "Music, like life, is about harmony," he said. "But harmony isn't created by silence or fear. It comes from listening, responding, and sometimes daring to improvise. The same applies to your lives. Emotions are not a disruption. They are part of the composition." Vic raised an eyebrow, smiling slightly. "So you're saying that by following our hearts, we're improvising?" Ryan chuckled. "Yes, in the best possible way. Improvisation requires courage, trust, and a willingness to make mistakes. And sometimes, mistakes are the path to brilliance." The students began to act on Ryan's guidance in subtle but meaningful ways. Vic found himself leaving small notes for Ish, encouraging her after a challenging rehearsal. Sophie began writing quiet messages to Sammy, offering support and sharing reflections on their performances. Kyle discovered new confidence in expressing gratitude and admiration toward Karen. Each act, though small, created a ripple effect throughout Hawthorne Academy, a quiet rebellion that did not disrupt order, but challenged the emotional rigidity Richard sought to impose. One afternoon, Ryan gathered the 3 main student couples in the music hall for a brief meeting. "I know the restrictions feel oppressive," he said, looking around at their attentive faces. "But think of this not as rebellion for its own sake, but as affirmation. You are affirming your humanity, your capacity for empathy, and your ability to connect authentically. These are lessons that no rule can take from you, and they are lessons you will carry for the rest of your lives." Ish leaned forward, curiosity and concern in her eyes. "But what if Richard punishes us? What if he sees this as defiance?" Ryan's expression was calm but resolute. "Then you face that consequence with integrity. Being true to yourself is never a crime. Discipline is necessary for growth, but cruelty and fear should never define your journey." As the days passed, Hawthorne Academy became a quiet battleground of ideals. The students, guided by Ryan's mentorship, balanced careful discretion with meaningful expression. Smiles, laughter, and moments of tenderness became acts of subtle resistance, a way of asserting individuality without outright defiance. In the classrooms, music rooms, and practice halls, students supported each other, building camaraderie that transcended fear. Even minor victories, a shared joke, a compliment, a note left anonymously, felt revolutionary in a place where emotional expression had long been suppressed. Richard noticed.
growing increasingly frustrated as the evidence of his failing control accumulated. Reports from faculty described small gestures, acts of kindness, and the unmistakable emotional bonds forming among students. He summoned Ryan to his office, his tone sharp. "Callahan, I warned them. I warned you. And yet, it persists. How do you explain this?" Ryan met his gaze steadily, calm and unwavering. "I'm not leading them astray, Richard. I'm helping them navigate what it means to be human, to care, to trust, to love in measured ways. You cannot control their hearts, and you cannot erase the lessons of empathy and connection that life itself teaches." Richard's jaw tightened, the words cutting deep even as he refused to admit it aloud. Ryan continued, his voice gentle yet firm. "Discipline is necessary, Richard, but so is compassion. One without the other creates rigidity that harms, isolates, and diminishes the spirit. These students are not rebelling out of malice. They are embracing their humanity. They are learning to live fully, even under constraints." Richard looked away, eyes narrowing as he tried to suppress the conflict stirring within him. The truth of Ryan's words echoed quietly, challenging the decades of rigid authority he had enforced. By the end of the week, Hawthorne Academy was alive with a quiet, defiant energy. The students moved with cautious confidence, aware of Richard's watchful eye, but emboldened by Ryan's guidance. Friendships deepened, partnerships grew stronger, and romantic connections flourished discreetly. Each act of honesty a quiet protest against fear and control. In classrooms, practice halls, and corridors, the subtle victories of human connection shimmered like sparks in the shadow of authority. And through it all, Ryan remained a steady mentor and advocate, quietly inspiring the students to trust their hearts, even when the world around them sought to stifle them. In this way, the Academy had become a delicate battleground, a place where discipline and compassion, rules and freedom, authority and love clashed and intertwined. The students had begun to understand that courage was not only found in defying authority outright, but in the quiet persistence of being true to oneself. Under Ryan's mentorship, they were learning a lesson Richard Stanton had long resisted: that love, connection, and integrity were not threats to discipline. They were its greatest test and its most profound triumph.
The corridors of Hawthorne Academy, usually echoing with the steady rhythm of disciplined footsteps, felt unusually tense. Whispers moved like shadows among the students, subtle but persistent. Word had begun to circulate. Sammy Cooper and Sophie Adams were openly affectionate again. Vic Morales and Ish Rivera had been seen lingering together after practice, and Kyle Donovan's tutoring sessions with Karen Blake's nephew hinted at a closeness that Richard Stanton had forbidden. For a school steeped in discipline and anti-romance policies, these small acts of connection now represented insubordination, and the consequences would be swift and severe. Richard sat in his office, the morning light filtering through the tall windows, but failing to soften the severity in his expression. His hands rested on the polished oak desk, fingers steepled as he considered the reports from his faculty. "They think they can flout my authority," he muttered to himself. His jaw tightened at the thought of Ryan Callahan's subtle influence, the way the music teacher had encouraged connection and emotional expression. "This ends now," he said firmly. With deliberate motions, he drafted formal notices summoning Sammy, Vic, and Kyle to his office immediately. Their relationships, in his eyes, were no longer mere distractions. They were instigators of chaos, threatening the order he had spent 25 years cultivating. The students received the summons in the mid-morning.
each of them apprehensive, but trying to mask their concern. Sammy's face was pale, and Sophie's hand brushed his lightly as she whispered, "Stay calm. He wants a reaction. Don't give it to him." Vic exchanged a brief glance with Ish, whose eyes reflected equal parts worry and quiet resolve. Kyle, though typically confident, felt a pang of dread at the thought of confronting Richard, whose reputation for strict enforcement was notorious. Despite Ryan's guidance, the weight of impending punishment pressed heavily on all three. In the principal's office, Richard awaited their arrival, standing rigidly with his arms crossed. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, followed each student as they entered. "Sit," he commanded, his voice devoid of warmth. The students obeyed, forming a tense semicircle before him. Richard exhaled slowly, letting the silence linger before speaking. "I have reviewed the reports. It appears that each of you has been engaging in activities that violate the Academy's code of conduct." He paused, scanning their faces. "Friendships are one thing. Camaraderie is encouraged, but what you have done goes beyond acceptable boundaries. You have spread disorder, undermined discipline, and challenged the very principles of this institution." Sammy spoke first, his voice measured but firm. "Sir, we aren't trying to undermine the school. We're just honest about our feelings. We're not hurting anyone." "Honesty. At what cost, Mr. Cooper? At the cost of tradition, respect, and order? Hawthorne Academy does not exist to indulge sentimentality. You are no longer students following the rules. You are instigators of chaos. And as such, disciplinary action is required." Vic shifted in his seat, tension visible in his posture. "Sir, with all due respect, Ryan has been guiding us. He teaches trust, respect, and connection. We're not acting alone or recklessly." Richard's gaze sharpened, and his voice dropped to a dangerous edge. "Callahan's philosophy is precisely the problem. He encourages weakness and emotional indulgence. That is why I am left with no choice. You will all face expulsion unless there is immediate and complete acknowledgement of your misconduct." Ish spoke softly, her voice carrying a mix of fear and defiance. "Sir, we're not asking for indulgence. We're asking for understanding. We've learned responsibility and respect even while caring for one another. This isn't chaos, it's growth." Richard's jaw tightened, his eyes flicking briefly toward her before returning to the center of the room. Growth does not require disobedience. Emotional attachments at your age create distraction, mistakes, and inevitable failure. You may believe otherwise, but experience and history proves it otherwise.
Kyle, rarely intimidated, attempted to reason with Richard. "Sir, expelling us will solve nothing. If anything, it will create resentment, fear, and isolation. These relationships have taught us teamwork, discipline, and compassion, qualities the school claims to value. Is that truly chaos, or is it a different form of excellence?" Richard's fingers drummed on the desk, the sound sharp in the tense room. "You presume to define excellence for this institution? Hawthorne Academy has thrived on order, discipline, and tradition for generations. Your actions betray that foundation." Ryan, who had quietly followed the students to the office, now stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Richard, I must interject." The students looked at him with relief and trepidation. "These young men are not instigators of chaos. They are practicing empathy, connection, and integrity under guidance. You cannot punish them for being human." Richard's eyes flickered with controlled anger. "Callahan, you are well aware of my position. These students are under your influence, leading them astray. Your philosophies have caused this situation, and now they must face the consequences." Ryan's expression softened, but his tone remained resolute. "I did not mislead them. I guided them
toward understanding themselves, toward responsible emotional growth. If you view this as chaos, then the problem lies not with the students, but with your perception of what discipline truly means. Expelling them for care, respect, and honesty is not enforcing discipline, it is perpetuating fear. Richard's lips pressed into a thin line, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the edge of his desk. "I will not allow sentiment to override authority," he said finally, his voice rigid. "Your words will not change what must be done." The tension in the room was palpable, the air thick with unspoken conflict. The students shifted uncomfortably, feeling the full weight of Richard's authority pressing down upon them. Sophie clenched his fists, trying to steady his racing heart. Vic swallowed hard, glancing at Ish, who offered a quiet, reassuring nod. Kyle's jaw tightened, determination building behind his worry. None of them had expected the situation to escalate so quickly, but Ryan's presence reminded them they were not alone. Richard continued, outlining the formalities of their expulsion. Paperwork would be filed immediately, families notified, and all privileges revoked. You will leave the campus by the end of the week. Hawthorne Academy does not tolerate disorder. You may argue all you wish, but the decision is final. This is the cost of flaunting rules, of indulging feelings that compromise order. The students absorbed the words in silence, a mixture of fear, anger, and determination simmering beneath their calm exterior. As the students exited the office, Ryan lingered, addressing Richard one last time. "Sir, consider the consequences, not only for these students, but for the spirit of Hawthorne itself. Discipline without understanding breeds rebellion, resentment, and loss. These boys are not your enemies. They are a reflection of what your institution can become if guided with balance, compassion, and wisdom." Richard's expression betrayed no emotion, but the tightness in his jaw hinted at an internal struggle he was unwilling to reveal. "We shall see," he muttered, watching the students leave. Outside, the students gathered quietly in the courtyard, the weight of their possible expulsion heavy on their shoulders. Sophie reached for Sammy's hand, squeezing it tightly. "We'll figure this out," she whispered. Vic pulled Ish close briefly. "Whatever happens, we stay true to ourselves. That's the only thing that matters." Kyle nodded toward Ryan. "We won't lose what we've learned, no matter what he does." Ryan stood among them, offering calm assurance. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. This is your moment to hold on to that courage. The students understood, even in the shadow of Richard's wrath, that their connections, their growth, and their integrity could not be erased by rules alone. Though the threat of expulsion loomed, they had learned lessons that transcended authority: honesty, trust, empathy, and the quiet bravery to follow their hearts. Hawthorne Academy had become a crucible, testing not just obedience, but the resilience of the human spirit. And these students had begun to prove that love, integrity, and connection were forces far stronger than fear.
The office of Hawthorne Academy was unusually still that afternoon, a silence heavy with tension and anticipation. Richard Stanton sat behind his massive oak desk, eyes fixed on the stack of expulsion forms that bore the names of Sammy Cooper, Vic Morales, and Kyle Donovan. Every detail, every rule violation, and every note from the faculty had been meticulously cataloged. He prided himself on order, tradition, and discipline, but today, something gnawed at the edges of his certainty. The office door opened, and Ryan Callahan stepped in, his usual calm and confident demeanor intact, though a quiet fire burned in his eyes. "Richard," Ryan began, closing the door behind him, "I need to speak with you about the students." His tone was measured, but the intensity beneath it was unmistakable. Richard's fingers tapped the polished surface of his desk as he regarded Ryan. "Callahan, you are well aware of why they are here. The rules were broken. Their actions have endangered the order of this academy. I do not see what discussion could possibly change the outcome." Ryan took a deep breath, his gaze steady. "They are not rebels, Richard. They are not instigators of chaos. They are living the lessons I've been teaching about respect, trust, compassion, and connection. These are not violations of discipline. They are its highest expression. Richard's jaw tightened. Their expression of emotion had undermined my authority. They have acted recklessly, flaunting boundaries that maintain order. This is not about philosophy, it is about obedience. I will not bend to sentimentality or misplaced idealism. Ryan stepped closer, leaning slightly on the edge of the desk. Richard, do you not see that the very traits you claim to value, responsibility, integrity, respect, are what these students are demonstrating? They are exercising judgment, understanding consequences, and caring for one another. You taught them discipline, but discipline without heart creates fear, isolation, and despair. Is that truly the legacy you want to leave? Richard's eyes narrowed, the weight of Ryan's words pressing against decades of authority. And you presume to lecture me on the meaning of discipline? He asked sharply, though the usual sting of certainty in his tone was tinged with something else. Unease. I have dedicated my life to Hawthorne Academy, to molding young men into principled adults. They are failing to respect that dedication. You encourage them to indulge emotion, to follow whims. That is not education. That is anarchy. Ryan's expression softened, but his voice remained firm. Richard, love, connection, and honesty are not whims. They are integral to human development. These boys have not acted recklessly. They have acted responsibly, under my guidance. If anything, their ability to navigate these relationships demonstrates maturity, self-awareness, and ethical judgment. Richard's hand drummed against the desk, the sound sharp in the quiet room. You speak of guidance, he said, his voice clipped. Yet it is your guidance that led to this situation. The rules were clear. Hawthorne Academy has never tolerated romantic entanglements, and now we face insubordination. Are you suggesting I ignore every protocol, every principle? Ryan met his gaze unflinchingly. I am suggesting that principles are meaningless if they destroy what they were meant to protect. You have spent decades valuing order above humanity, structure above compassion. Look at what it has cost you, Richard. Look at Madeline. Do you want the same rigidity to dictate these young lives? Or do you want them to thrive fully and honestly within the framework of guidance, not fear? Richard's hand stilled, a faint tremor betraying his inner conflict. Ryan's words were deliberate, cutting through the layers of pride and grief that had long governed him. I do not make these decisions lightly, he muttered. They are my duty, my responsibility. If I allow exceptions, where does it end? Ryan shook his head gently. It does not have to end, Richard. Guidance and rules do not need to be abandoned. They simply need to be balanced with understanding. Let them keep their dignity, their connections, and their lessons without fear of punishment. Discipline does not require the suppression of the heart. It thrives alongside it.
Richard's eyes drifted to the window, where the courtyard shimmered with autumn light. He saw students walking with careful attentiveness, glancing at one another, exchanging subtle gestures of camaraderie. In that moment, he recognized the quiet power of what Ryan had been teaching: responsibility, trust, empathy, and courage. His lips pressed into a thin line as he considered the consequences of rigid enforcement versus measured compromise. And if I agree, he said slowly, how can I ensure that the Academy's reputation remains intact, that order is maintained? Ryan smiled faintly. Order and connection are not mutually exclusive, Richard. By guiding them thoughtfully, setting clear boundaries, and teaching respect for both rules and relationships, you preserve your authority while fostering growth. Reputation is strengthened when students flourish responsibly, not when they fear reprisal. Richard leaned back in his chair.
a rare moment of vulnerability crossing his features. "You make it sound reasonable," he admitted, his voice quieter than before. "But years of experience caution me. Experience has taught me that leniency breeds carelessness." Ryan took a measured step closer, his voice softening with compassion. "Experience has also taught me that rigidity breeds pain, fear, and loss. You know this better than anyone. You lost Madeline. That loss was born of rigidity and control. The students before you now are not Madeline. They are not doomed to tragedy. But they need someone willing to see beyond rules, someone willing to lead with both mind and heart." Richard's eyes hardened slightly, yet the tension in his posture betrayed the storm of conflicting emotions within him. He glanced at the expulsion forms again, fingers hovering over the edges. "And you believe I should?" he asked, voice trailing off. Ryan's answer was steady. "I believe you should recognize that these boys acted under guidance you condone indirectly through the values you've instilled: discipline, integrity, and respect. Let them learn from their experiences without fear of punishment. Teach them, correct them when needed, but do not destroy what they have built. That is leadership, not tyranny." The office was silent for a long moment, the weight of decades pressing down on Richard's shoulders. He closed his eyes briefly, the memories of Madeline flickering across his mind, the laughter, the love, the heartbreak. He thought of the students, their trust, their courage, and the lessons Ryan had so carefully nurtured. Slowly he opened his eyes, a reluctant resolve settling in. "Perhaps a compromise is possible," he admitted, his voice quieter but firm. "They may keep their positions, their connections, but under strict supervision and guidance. Any misconduct, any violation of decorum will be dealt with immediately. Do you understand?" Ryan nodded, relief and satisfaction softening his features. "Yes, Richard, that is more than fair. The students will learn responsibility, integrity, and compassion within boundaries that maintain respect for the academy. You are not abandoning authority, you are enhancing it." Richard's gaze softened ever so slightly, a shadow of acknowledgement passing through the stoicism that had defined him for decades. "I hope this does not backfire," he muttered, almost to himself. Ryan smiled faintly. "It will not if you lead with the wisdom you already possess and the courage to face your own fears. These students are resilient, Richard. They will rise to the occasion just as you taught them to rise in every other aspect of life." As the meeting concluded, Ryan stepped back, giving Richard a moment to collect himself. The air felt lighter, charged with the sense of a crisis averted, yet lessons still to be learned. Outside the office, Sammy, Vic, Kyle, and their partners waited, their anxiety palpable. When they saw Ryan emerge, a wave of relief washed over them. Is it over?" Sammy asked tentatively. Ryan smiled, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "It's not over, not entirely, but you're safe. And more importantly, you now have the chance to learn, grow, and honor your hearts responsibly." The students nodded, hope and determination glimmering in their eyes. For the first time in weeks, they felt a sense of possibility beyond fear. Richard had shown a crack in his armor, a willingness to balance authority with compassion. And Ryan, steadfast as ever, had reminded them that courage, honesty, and connection were virtues that no rule could suppress. In the quiet moments that followed, Hawthorne Academy seemed to hold its breath, standing on the precipice of a new chapter, a chapter where discipline and love might finally coexist, guided by wisdom rather than fear. The assembly hall of Hawthorne Academy was filled to capacity, a mixture of anticipation and tension hanging in the air. Students, teachers, and staff gathered, the polished wooden benches gleaming under the soft afternoon light filtering through the tall windows. At the front, Richard Stanton stood behind the podium, his usual composed authority radiating across the hall. Today was to be a demonstration of control. a public assertion that discipline would be upheld and that any deviation from the Academy's rigid standards would not be tolerated. The audience shifted uneasily as murmurs spread. Ryan Callahan stepped forward, his posture calm but his eyes carrying the fire of conviction. Richard's expression was unyielding, his lips pressed into a firm line. "Callahan," he said sharply, "you will publicly admit to misleading these students. You will acknowledge that your teachings encouraged disobedience and that you undermined my authority. Failure to do so will result in immediate termination, and the students will face full disciplinary measures." The words echoed through the hall, a tangible weight pressing down on every listener. Ryan inhaled deeply, meeting Richard's gaze unwaveringly. "I will not lie, Richard. I will not betray the trust of these students, nor will I excuse the harm caused by rigid authority." A ripple of surprise moved through the audience. Students whispered amongst themselves, glancing at each other with cautious hope. Richard's eyes narrowed. "You dare defy me here, in front of the entire Academy?" he demanded, though a faint tension betrayed his uncertainty. Ryan remained composed, stepping fully into the center of the hall. "My name is Ryan Callahan. I am also Ryan Mitchell, their teacher and their mentor. But above all, I am someone who has loved and lost. I am someone who knows the cost of rigid rules enforced without compassion." He paused, letting his words sink into the attentive silence. "Years ago, I was a student at this very academy. I loved Madeline Stanton, your daughter, Richard. We were young, but our love was real. And it was destroyed because of strict adherence to rules, because of fear, because of a belief that order mattered more than hearts." Richard's hands clenched on the podium, but Ryan pressed on, emotion rising in his voice. "Madeline believed in love, in connection, in trust. She trusted the Academy, and she trusted you, Richard. But she was driven to despair when your rigidness tore us apart. She could not survive the weight of that control. She took her life because of the very lessons you claim to uphold. I am not here to accuse you lightly, Richard. I am here to remind you and everyone present of the consequences of allowing fear and pride to dictate human lives." A stunned hush fell over the assembly. Students and faculty alike were silent, absorbing the gravity of Ryan's revelation. Even Richard, formidable and proud, felt the words piercing the armor he had worn for decades. His fingers tightened on the podium, but he did not interrupt, his mind churning with memories he had long buried. Ryan's eyes swept across the room, finally resting on the students before him. Sammy, Sophie, Vic, Ish, and Kyle. These students before you are not here to defy authority. They are here because they are learning what I could not teach you through tragedy alone. That love, connection, and compassion are not threats to discipline. They are essential to it. He stepped closer to the edge of the stage, voice ringing clear and emotional. Do you see them, Richard? They have learned responsibility, empathy, and integrity. They have been courageous, not reckless. And yet the threat of expulsion looms because adherence to outdated rigidity outweighs understanding. I ask you now, what lesson will they remember? That obedience is valued more than humanity? That fear trumps love? Ryan's words struck deep, and murmurs of agreement spread among the students. Some wiped away tears, others clenched their fists in quiet determination, inspired by the courage of their mentor.
Richard's face hardened, his voice low but controlled. Callahan, this is highly inappropriate. You have no right to manipulate the students' emotions in this manner. Ryan shook his head, sorrow etched in his features. I am not manipulating, Richard. I am revealing truth. I am honoring Madeline's memory, and I am ensuring that these young men do not suffer the same fate as she did, not for love, not for defiance, not for being human. The harm you inflicted is real, and it is time it was acknowledged, even if only through courage, not confession. The room was silent, every listener holding their breath. Students leaned forward, their eyes shining with admiration and empathy. Teachers exchanged glances, recognizing the weight of the moment and the righteousness of Ryan's appeal. Ryan's voice softened, carrying the grief and hope of years. I loved Madeline, and because of that love, I vow to teach these students differently, to show them that they can honor tradition without sacrificing heart, that discipline can coexist with compassion, and that loss, while inevitable, should never silence the capacity to love. A single cough echoed from the back of the hall as Richard finally spoke, voice quieter than before, carrying a tinge of vulnerability. "And if I refuse?" he asked, though the force behind the words had softened. Ryan met him with unwavering eyes. "Then you will watch, as I leave, the students, guided by the very lessons you instilled, but tempered with humanity, continue to grow, connect, and thrive despite fear of punishment. You will see that love is not weakness, Richard, and that discipline need not be cruel." The silence stretched, heavy and taut, as Richard stared at Ryan, then across the assembly. He saw the students' faces, determined, courageous, and full of life. He saw Sophie and Sammy, who had found each other again, Vic and Ish, whose connection had deepened through trust, Kyle, who had grown in confidence and integrity, and the supportive presence of Ryan, guiding them not to rebellion, but to responsible emotional growth. Slowly, the realization of the consequences of his past rigidity settled on him like a weight he could no longer ignore. Finally, Richard exhaled, a long, slow release, the tension in his posture easing ever so slightly. "Very well," he said quietly, his voice still carrying authority, but tempered with a new understanding. "I will allow the students to remain. I will respect the lessons they have learned under your guidance, Callahan, though I do so reluctantly. But know this is not a surrender. It is a test of the Academy's ability to balance discipline with humanity." Ryan's shoulders relaxed, but the fire in his eyes remained. "It is not surrender, Richard. It is growth. For them, for you, and for the legacy of Hawthorne Academy." The students, sensing the end of the confrontation, released quiet breaths of relief, their eyes shining with gratitude and empathy. Some approached Ryan quietly, offering whispered thanks and subtle smiles. Sophie squeezed Sammy's hand, tears of relief brimming in her eyes. Vic and Ish exchanged a shy smile, their earlier tension melting away. Kyle looked to Karen, who had been observing from the sidelines, nodding slightly in approval. The hall, once heavy with fear and tension, now buzzed softly with hope and cautious optimism. Ryan turned back to the students, his voice warm and steady. "Remember this moment. Not because it was a victory over authority, but because it was a reminder that integrity, empathy, and love can coexist with discipline. Never let fear or rigidity silence the human heart. That is the lesson Hawthorne Academy must carry forward." Richard, still standing at the podium, remained silent, watching the exchange with an inscrutable expression. But deep inside, a seed of change had been planted, a recognition that the cost of rigidity might be too great, and that love, compassion, and humanity must have a place even within the strictest of walls. As the assembly concluded, students filed out with newfound confidence, whispers of gratitude and inspiration filling the hall. Ryan lingered briefly, watching Richard, then guiding the students gently toward the exit. Outside, the courtyard was bathed in golden afternoon light, the shadows of the ivy-covered halls long and welcoming. The academy had survived a public reckoning of ideals, and though the path forward was uncertain, one truth was clear. Hawthorne Academy would no longer be a place where the human heart was silenced or suppressed.
The evening sun cast long shadows across the ivy-clad walls of Hawthorne Academy, painting the courtyard in hues of gold and amber. The day's events had left the campus in a charged silence, one that seemed to ripple through the halls and classrooms alike. In his office, Richard Stanton sat alone, the weight of the public confrontation still pressing heavily on his shoulders. The polished oak desk before him, usually a symbol of authority, now felt like a barrier between him and the truths he had spent decades avoiding. He leaned back in his chair, hands clasped tightly, mind racing through memories long buried. Richard's thoughts inevitably returned to Madeline. Her laughter, her warmth, and the quiet evenings they had once shared in the Stanton family home pressed against his chest. He had always believed that controlling her life was an act of protection, that his strict rules were meant to ensure her safety and the Academy's order. But now, with Ryan's words echoing in his ears, he could see the devastating consequences of that rigidity. "I drove her to despair," he whispered to himself, the confession breaking through his stoic facade. "I could have saved her. I could have loved her differently." A soft knock at the office door startled him. "Come in," he called, his voice hoarse and subdued. Ryan stepped inside quietly, his expression calm but knowing, as though he could read the storm within Richard's mind. "Richard," Ryan began gently, "you don't have to face this alone. You've carried the weight of authority for so long, but today was about the truth, about the consequences of fear over compassion." Richard shook his head, leaning forward, hands covering his face. "It's too late, Ryan. She's gone. All my years of discipline, all my rules, they couldn't protect her. And instead I lost her. How do you fix that? How do you make amends for a life I took from her without realizing it?" Ryan approached the desk, resting a hand lightly on the polished surface. "You can't change the past, Richard. No one can. But you can change the future. You can lead Hawthorne Academy differently, guide these students with the balance of discipline and empathy. You can honor Madeline not by clinging to rigid rules, but by ensuring no one else suffers the same pain. It's not about punishment. It's about understanding, compassion, and growth." Richard's eyes lifted slowly, meeting Ryan's unwavering gaze. The raw honesty in Ryan's voice struck him more deeply than any reprimand, more forcefully than any argument. "I thought control was protecting," Richard admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I believed that keeping students and my own family within strict boundaries would shield them from harm. I never imagined it could lead to this." He paused, swallowing hard, as memories of Madeline's bright eyes and quiet smiles surged through him. "I convinced myself that authority and discipline were virtues, but in truth, I was blind. I failed her, Ryan. I failed her entirely." Ryan nodded, his expression solemn yet encouraging. "Acknowledging that is the first step, Richard. It's painful, yes, but it's also necessary. Your willingness to see the error of your ways can become the foundation for change, for the academy, for the students, and even for yourself." Richard ran a hand through his graying hair, the tension in his shoulders betraying the internal battle raging within him. "I've spent 25 years here, building tradition, maintaining order, enforcing rules. And now it feels like everything I've worked for might crumble if I admit I was wrong." Ryan smiled faintly, a soft reassurance in his eyes. "It's not crumbling, it's evolving.
Hawthorne Academy can be stronger if it learns to balance structure with heart. Leadership is not merely enforcing rules. It's understanding, guiding, and, at times, admitting fault. True authority grows from wisdom, not fear.
A long silence fell over the office as Richard contemplated the words, the gravity of the day pressing down upon him. He thought of the students, Sammy, Sophie, Vic, Ish, Kyle, and how fear of expulsion had loomed over them for days. He realized, painfully, that his insistence on rigid adherence to rules could have crushed their growth, their courage, and their capacity for love. I could have been the guiding force, not the obstacle, he reflected bitterly. Madeline suffered because I valued control over compassion. Finally, Richard exhaled slowly, a deep, shuddering breath that seemed to release decades of tension and pride. "You're right, Ryan," he admitted, his voice steadying with newfound resolve. "I've been blind to the cost of my own rules. I thought I was protecting, but I was only enforcing fear. I cannot undo the past, but I can change what Hawthorne becomes from this day forward." Ryan nodded, the corners of his mouth lifting in a small, hopeful smile. "That's all anyone can ask, Richard. It takes courage to face one's mistakes and do better. That courage can transform not just the academy, but everyone within it." Richard's gaze shifted to the window, watching students move across the courtyard, their laughter and chatter carrying faintly on the evening breeze. For the first time in decades, he allowed himself to see the academy through their eyes, not as a place of rigid rules, but as a living community of learning, growing, and connecting. He could imagine a future where discipline and love coexisted, where students could flourish without fear of punishment for being human. His chest tightened with a mixture of grief and hope, a recognition of the path he must now take. "Ryan," he said finally, voice firm yet tinged with vulnerability, "I need to address the students. I need to acknowledge my errors openly and step aside if necessary. Hawthorne must become a place where learning and humanity coexist, where love is not feared and where connection is not punished." Ryan placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "They'll respond, Richard. They'll see your honesty and courage, and more importantly, they'll learn that leadership can be tempered with empathy. You're not losing control, you're gaining wisdom." Richard leaned back, a weight lifting slightly from his heart. "Madeline, yes, I failed her, but perhaps through change I can honor her memory. Perhaps Hawthorne can become a place where students thrive without fear of losing themselves or their hearts." Ryan's eyes glistened with quiet approval. "Exactly. The academy can grow, evolve, and flourish, not in spite of love, but because of it. That is the legacy you can leave, Richard, one of balance, compassion, and true understanding." The sun finally dipped lower, casting a warm glow over the office and through the corridors of Hawthorne Academy. Richard rose from his chair, a resolute determination settling in his posture. He looked once more at Ryan, his voice firm and clear. "Tomorrow I will address the students. I will acknowledge my errors openly and step aside if necessary. Hawthorne must become a place where learning and humanity coexist, where love is not feared and where connection is not punished." Ryan placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Then Hawthorne will finally be a place where hearts and minds can grow together, Richard. A place where love, trust, and discipline coexist." Richard nodded, a faint, reflective smile brushing his lips. The turning point had come. He had confronted the truth about his daughter's death, the damage his rigidness had caused, and the lessons he had stubbornly ignored. The path forward was clear, and though it would require humility, courage, and continued effort, he knew the academy and its students could finally have the balance and compassion they deserved.
Outside, the campus seemed to breathe with the promise of change, the golden light catching the ivy walls as if reflecting the beginning of a new chapter.
The first rays of dawn filtered through the tall windows of Hawthorne Academy's assembly hall, casting a warm glow across the polished wooden floors. Students shuffled quietly into their seats, murmurs of curiosity and apprehension filling the room. There had been whispers all morning, rumors of a major announcement from Principal Richard Staunton. Teachers and staff stood along the sides, faces solemn, sensing the gravity that the day held. The atmosphere was heavy with anticipation, every student aware that the rigid world of Hawthorne might soon face a turning point. Richard Staunton entered the hall, his usual authoritative gait tempered by a rare humility. The murmurs fell silent as he approached the podium, every eye fixed on him. He cleared his throat, and for a moment, the weight of decades seemed to settle visibly on his shoulders. "Good morning," he began, his voice steady but softer than usual. "I have called this assembly to speak honestly with all of you about the way I have governed this academy." A hush fell over the hall, the students leaning forward instinctively, sensing that something significant was about to unfold. "I have spent 25 years leading Hawthorne Academy with the belief that strict rules, discipline, and control were the best paths to preparing you for the world. I believed that emotion, particularly love and personal connection, were distractions to be curtailed. I now realize how wrong I was." A collective murmur of surprise ran through the room. Students exchanged glances, some leaning closer to hear every word. "I see now," Richard said, his voice tinged with regret, "that my inflexibility caused pain, unnecessary pain, heartbreak, and fear. I failed not just as a principal, but as a human being entrusted with guiding your lives." Richard paused, taking a deep breath. "I understand better now that discipline is not served through fear. Control does not equal guidance, and rules without understanding can cause suffering far beyond what any of us anticipate. I learned this painfully through personal tragedy, through the loss of my daughter, Madeline. Her life was cut short because I valued order over love, tradition over compassion. That loss should never have happened, and it is a wound I will carry for the rest of my life." The room was silent, the weight of his confession resonating deeply with the students. Some eyes glistened with tears, others reflected quiet respect and empathy for the man who had finally spoken his truth. Richard's hands gripped the podium, his knuckles pale. "I cannot undo the past," he admitted, "but I can change what comes next. I can ensure that no student here suffers from the same rigid enforcement that led to such tragedy in my own life. Hawthorne Academy must evolve. Discipline must coexist with compassion, rules with understanding, and education with the recognition of your humanity." He took a slow breath, letting the words sink into the attentive silence of the hall. "It is with this understanding that I make a decision today, one I have not taken lightly." A quiet tension filled the room, students and staff leaning forward as they awaited the principal's next words. "I am resigning as principal of Hawthorne Academy," Richard announced, his voice steady and deliberate. A ripple of shock moved through the students, whispers spread, disbelief mingling with curiosity. "I have held this position for 25 years, guiding this institution with what I thought was wisdom. But I see now that wisdom is not simply adherence to tradition or enforcement of rules. It is the courage to recognize mistakes, to learn, and to grow. Therefore, I step aside, trusting that Hawthorne can now embrace a future where hearts and minds are nurtured equally." Richard's gaze shifted, finally settling on Ryan Callahan, who stood quietly near the back of the hall. "Ryan," he said, his voice carrying the weight of both authority and acknowledgement, "you have shown courage, compassion, and unwavering commitment to these students. I entrust the academy to you.
confident that you will lead it with balance, upholding our traditions while allowing for the human connections that are equally essential to growth and learning. Ryan stepped forward, bowing his head in acknowledgement. Thank you, Richard. I will honor this responsibility with the respect, care, and understanding that these students deserve. Hawthorne will be a place where tradition and love coexist, where discipline guides without suppressing the heart. A quiet cheer rippled through the assembly as students absorbed the announcement. Sammy and Sophie exchanged wide-eyed looks, relief and excitement flickering across their faces. Vic and Ish grinned at each other, feeling the burden of fear lifting from their shoulders. Kyle smiled faintly, glancing toward Karen, who had accompanied him quietly in the back. The hall seemed to shift, the atmosphere lighter, filled with a cautious optimism that had been absent for decades. Students whispered among themselves, discussing what this change would mean for their daily lives, for their friendships, and for the possibilities they could now pursue without fear of punishment. Richard raised a hand, silencing the growing murmur. I ask all of you to remember that this change does not diminish the value of discipline or tradition, he said, his tone firm yet tempered by humility. Hawthorne Academy remains a place of excellence, respect, and honor. What changes is how we balance these values with compassion, integrity, and the understanding that love is not a threat. It is a vital part of who we are as human beings. The students nodded silently, absorbing the meaning behind his words, many feeling the profound impact of this rare moment of vulnerability and honesty from a man who had long been a figure of unyielding authority. Ryan stepped forward again, addressing the students directly. This is your opportunity, he said warmly, to continue learning not just academics, but life lessons about trust, empathy, and connection. Cherish your friendships, honor your feelings, and support each other. Hawthorne Academy will no longer be a place where fear dictates behavior. It will be a place where you are encouraged to grow fully as individuals, with both discipline and heart guiding your steps. Students rose in applause, their energy filling the hall with a vibrancy that had been absent for years. Even teachers, who had long observed Richard's strict governance, found themselves nodding in agreement, impressed by the courage it had taken to make this public admission and to step aside. The walls of the assembly hall seemed to breathe differently, carrying with them the promise of a new era, one where rules would guide but not suffocate, where tradition would stand alongside compassion, and where love would no longer be seen as a threat to learning. Richard took one final look at the students, a mixture of pride and sorrow in his eyes. Remember, he said quietly, this academy is more than rules or discipline. It is a community, a family, and a place where your choices shape your character. Cherish it, respect it, and lead it with honor. And never forget that the heart is as important as the mind. He turned to Ryan, offering a final nod of trust. Lead them well. Ryan returned the nod, his eyes gleaming with quiet determination and empathy. As the students began filing out, the sun rose higher, bathing the ivy-covered walls and polished floors in a warm golden light. For the first time in decades, Hawthorne Academy felt like a place alive with both tradition and possibility. A school where discipline and compassion could coexist, and where students could pursue not only excellence, but also authentic connection. Outside, the courtyard buzzed with laughter and conversation, signaling a fresh beginning, a new chapter written not in fear, but in courage, understanding, and hope.
The morning sun spilled across the grounds of Hawthorne Academy, bathing the ivy-covered halls in a golden light that seemed to signal not just the start of a day, but the start of a new era. Students moved briskly across the courtyard, chatting and laughing with a freedom that had once been foreign within these walls. The previous day's events had left an indelible mark, and now, under the guidance of Ryan Callahan, the academy felt lighter, more vibrant, and brimming with possibility. Where once silence and caution had reigned, now curiosity, warmth, and cautious optimism thrived. Ryan walked through the halls, greeted by students with smiles and subtle nods of respect. He paused to watch Sammy Cooper and Sophie Adams laughing together as they carried their music books, their shoulders brushing naturally, without fear. Nearby, Victor, or Vic, Morales, and Ish Rivera were discussing choreography for the upcoming school dance showcase, their camaraderie unmistakably warm. Even Kyle Donovan lingered outside the music room, sharing a quiet conversation with Karen Blake as they discussed piano lessons. The academy, once rigid and controlled, now felt like a living, breathing community, where relationships were valued alongside education. Ryan walked through the halls, greeted by students with smiles and subtle nods of respect. He paused to watch Sammy Cooper and Sophie Adams laughing together as they carried their music books, their shoulders brushing naturally, without fear. Nearby, Victor, or Vic, Morales, and Ish Rivera were discussing choreography for the upcoming school dance showcase, their camaraderie unmistakably warm. Even Kyle Donovan lingered outside the music room, sharing a quiet conversation with Karen Blake as they discussed piano lessons. The academy, once rigid and controlled, now felt like a living, breathing community, where relationships were valued alongside education. Ryan paused at the podium in the assembly hall, which had once been dominated by Richard Stanton's commanding presence. Today, it felt different, welcoming, inclusive, and open. Students gathered, their chatter subdued as they sensed a new tone, one of guidance rather than fear. "Good morning, everyone," Ryan began, his voice warm and resonant, yet carrying the authority of someone trusted rather than feared. Today marks a new beginning for Hawthorne Academy, not a break from tradition, but an evolution of it. Our school will continue to uphold excellence, honor, and discipline, but we will also embrace the human heart, the connections, the friendships, and the love that make our community vibrant and strong.
A ripple of approval swept through the students. Hands raised, questions whispered, and smiles exchanged, all signaling a sense of relief and excitement. Ryan's eyes met those of Sammy and Sophie in the front row. "You have already shown me that courage and authenticity matter," he continued. "Sammy and Sophie, Vic and Ish, Kyle and Karen, all of you have demonstrated that pursuing connection doesn't weaken you, it strengthens your character, your empathy, and your ability to lead responsibly. Let this be the example we carry forward." The students' energy shifted, a palpable excitement replacing the lingering fear of expulsion that had once gripped the academy. Ryan walked among them, addressing small clusters, answering questions, and offering encouragement. "Tradition is important," he told a group of younger students, "but tradition without understanding is hollow. Rules exist to guide, not to imprison. You are encouraged to form friendships, to support each other, and yes, even to explore love, responsibly, honestly, and with integrity. Hawthorne can be a place where hearts and minds grow together, not in opposition." In the courtyard, Ryan watched as students began pairing off for various activities. Sammy and Sophie practiced a duet on the piano, their laughter mingling with the music. Vic and Ish rehearsed a dance sequence, the rhythm of their movements highlighting the chemistry and trust that had developed between them. Kyle worked with Karen's nephew, teaching him scales, while Karen observed with a gentle smile, the warmth between them unmistakable. Even the teachers, once wary of emotional entanglements, moved with a renewed openness, ready to mentor students with both discipline and empathy. Ryan's footsteps led him to the headmaster's office, where he paused to glance out over the courtyard. The ivy glimmered in the morning light, a reminder that growth, like nature itself, required care, patience, and understanding.
He could almost imagine Richard Stampton standing there, reflecting on the years he had led with rigidity, now seeing the consequences of inflexibility firsthand. Ryan allowed himself a quiet smile, knowing that while change had been difficult, the Academy was now poised for something remarkable, a place where learning and love could coexist without fear. Later that afternoon, Ryan gathered the student council in the assembly hall to outline the vision for the future. Hawthorne will continue to honor academic excellence, tradition, and discipline, but it will also honor you, your passions, your emotions, and your connections with each other. The Academy is not just about rules or authority. It is about fostering courage, empathy, and integrity. Each of you has a role to play in creating a community where respect and compassion guide your interactions as much as study and competition.
The council members listened intently, their faces alight with excitement and a sense of purpose. "We can finally balance responsibility and freedom," Sammy whispered to Sophie, who nodded in agreement, her eyes shining. Vic exchanged a grin with Ish, their hands brushing lightly as they shared a quiet, knowing smile. Kyle glanced toward Karen, who had been observing quietly from the back, offering an encouraging nod. "This feels right," he murmured. "Like Hawthorne can finally be a place where we're allowed to be fully ourselves." Ryan turned back to address the full group, voice carrying over the assembled students. "There will be guidance, mentoring, and support," he said. "Rules will remain, but their purpose is to protect and guide, not to instill fear. Love, connection, and empathy are not weaknesses, they are strengths. And discipline, when balanced with understanding, becomes wisdom. That is the vision for Hawthorne Academy going forward." A wave of applause filled the hall, echoing off the ivy walls, a collective acknowledgement that the Academy had finally found its balance. Outside, the sun continued to climb higher in the courtyard, where students gathered to practice, play, and collaborate freely. The once tense and rigid atmosphere was replaced by laughter, music, and the lively exchange of ideas. Ryan walked among them, occasionally joining in on a piano session or offering a word of encouragement to a group of dancers. The walls that had once felt confining now seemed welcoming, their ivy-covered surfaces symbolizing growth, resilience, and the intertwining of tradition with the new life blooming within the Academy. Later in the afternoon, Ryan addressed to the entire student body once more, standing at the podium with a calm authority tempered by warmth. "Hawthorne Academy has a proud history," he said, "but history alone does not define us. What defines us is how we adapt, how we grow, and how we embrace both our traditions and our humanity. You are the first generation to carry forward this balance, to learn with your hearts as well as your minds. Cherish it, protect it, and honor it. Hawthorne can now be a place where excellence and love coexist, where discipline guides without crushing, and where every one of you can thrive fully as a student and as a human being." The hall erupted in applause once more, this time louder and more enthusiastic, echoing into every corner of the Academy. Students clapped, cheered, and even whistled, their excitement uncontained. Sammy hugged Sophie tightly, Vic and Ish exchanged a delighted high five, and Kyle smiled, sharing a quiet look with Karen. Ryan allowed himself a small, satisfied smile, knowing that the Academy had begun a journey toward true balance, a place where tradition, love, and personal connection were no longer at odds. As the day drew to a close, the sun setting behind the ivy-covered walls, Hawthorne Academy felt transformed. The students walked across the courtyard with newfound confidence, the sound of laughter and music filling the air. Teachers moved among them with encouragement rather than caution. Ryan paused at the entrance, taking in the scene, a quiet sense of accomplishment and hope swelling within him. The Academy was no longer just a place of strict rules and rigid authority. It was now a community where discipline, tradition, and love could coexist harmoniously, guiding each student toward a future filled with possibility, connection,
and the freedom to be fully human. The legacy of Hawthorne Academy had entered a new chapter, one where hearts could flourish alongside minds, where mistakes could be met with understanding, and where love was not forbidden but celebrated. Under Ryan Callahan's leadership, the Academy embraced its first true beginning, a balance of tradition and compassion that promised hope, growth, and the nurturing of generations to come.